Hello guys, welcome back to another exciting Naruto fanfiction. Heart. If you're enjoying this series, don't forget to hit the like button, share this video with your friends, and subscribe for more amazing Naruto, which is what if Naruto's ultimate harem began with Sakura, Hinata, Ino and Anko. Part 1. Now let's start the fanfic. He fell against the cold hard stony ground. His vision started to become blurry. Sasuke's face hovered over his own. The boy he thought a brother. He looked remorseful in that moment. Then it was dark. With a splash he fell in the sewers of his mind again. The light growing dimmer. I don't want to die, defiance laced each word. Even in this place he could see the hole in his chest. The blood that poured out. He strafed as fast as he could. I need to heal. The fox had healed him before. He could do it again. That stupid thing almost destroyed Konoha once, surely fixing him twice in one day was an easy task. At long last he found it. The giant gates. He couldn't help but smile. Hey, fox, he shouted with all his might. You better fix me up, or we'll both die. He expected to see two large glaring eyes look back at him with hate and malice. A large gust of disgusting breath that would make him lose balance. Silence. Growing impatient he banged on the gates. Fox. Where the hell are you? You gotta patch me up. No answer. Stupid fox. He kicked the gate. Fear took hold of him as the giant gate creaked in pain, and then before his eyes fell. Water rose like damned spirits as it washed over him. He stared in deathly awe. This wasn't supposed to happen. What the hell? Did I screw up? He needed answers. Gulping he walked through the gate. The pain seemed to increase with each step and it became darker with each step. He felt dizzier than before. He remembered the first time he came here. What felt like 10 maybe 15 minutes here was only a second or two outside his mind. He wasn't that dumb. He knew he had a chance. He had to take it. He needed to live. Braving himself he ran deep into the darkness. I have to go back to Konoha. They were waiting for him back there. His friends risked their lives. I'll bring back the idiot later. He assured himself. First he needed to heal. Now where was that dam? What the hell? Naruto fell into what he could feel like was a lake. He couldn't see shit. The water was moving fast, dragging him around in circles. He was being yanked into the deep of it. Whoa. He fell once more. Through the air he descended. The sudden emergence of light blinded him. With a vicious thud he hit ground and rubbed his eyes. The pain he felt was searing, but it didn't hurt as much as it did a few moments ago. Slowly he opened his eyes and fell silent. Gray. It was all gray, as far as the eyes could see. The land, the sky, even the little streams of water running beside him. Where the hell was he? Maybe I'm dead. Maybe it was too late. If that was the case, why did he still feel the pain in his chest? Why was he still bleeding? I've gotta get out of here. But where would he go? As far as Naruto could tell, everything in front of him was dead. There was a river here, he guessed, from the little streams that remained, in the forest that lay beyond looked ruined beyond measured. To his back was a cliff and he decided to go up, get a better view. Taking off his jacket and wrapping it around his chest to lessen the bleeding, the young ninja walked upwards. This place, it seemed familiar to him. Yet he never remembered being here. Reaching the top, he stopped to take a look around, and the more he looked the more confused he grew. The shape of the ground, the bedrock, it almost seemed as if he was standing at the top of a now dried up waterfall. No, he told himself. He looked down and all of a sudden saw himself lying down at the base of it, bleeding out into the ashen waters. He took a step back. And another. Naruto Uzumaki was running away from that place. Going through a twisted forest with decaying trees. The trees themselves scared him more. Human skeletons seemed to be bark of the trees as branches grew out of them. Ravens much larger than he'd seen flying high above. Their cries making his ears hurt. He ran faster than he had ever before and finally found himself in another familiar place. The gates of Konoha. Gone were the vibrant colors, the people. Everything was a mess. The land itself looked twisted and deformed. Distorted and folding in on itself. What the hell is going on? He told himself. Tears were forming as he walked through this twisted vortex of brick and wood. He looked to the left and remembered the street where he bought the mask from. To the right was Ichiraku's, now the shop was a broken blister of wood and mortar. Everything looked badly charred and broken. As if all hell broke loose. Then he heard something. Something cracking. That faint sound seemed like the break of thunder in this silence. He rushed to the source. The Hokage Tower. Running his way across the rooftop, his eyes focused on the center. A bonfire. In the midst of all this dead gray, the orange fire burned brightly. The wood slowly cracked away as cinders faded into the air. There was someone there, sitting by the fire. A cloak and hood covered the person. Naruto did not like this at all. I don't like it either. The voice was deep, tired. The young ninja took a step back. No need to be afraid, Naruto. The man rose and turned. The cloak came off as Naruto looked with widened eyes. You. Yes, me, he said. He took a step forward. Or should I say, you. There was no mistaking it. His face, it was his face. Older. The cheek marks. The spiky hair. However, it wasn't all the same. For one, this one didn't have bright blonde hair. No, Naruto saw dark red hair that seemed eerie. His eyes too. His left was all violet Y, with circles inside. His right eye was a Sharingan, surrounded by black. He was tall too. Strongly built and missing his right arm. What the hell is going on? Naruto was confused. Who was this guy? Why'd he look like him? Where was the fox? Sit down. The man motioned for him to come over. Standing there all day isn't going to help. You don't have much time either way. Naruto looked down at his chest. It was still bleeding, albeit slower now. Tightening his fists, he walked forward, sitting down by the fire, still enough to stay away from this guy. You're wondering why I look like you, the man said. This will be hard to believe, but I'm you. What the hell does that even mean? I forgot how loud I used to be. What's going on? Where's the fox? And what the hell is with the all custom design here? Are you doing this? Yes, and no. The man told him. He raised his stub, the leftovers of his arm. What you see around you is what will happen in a few years. I'm from the future. This is all that's left of the village now. His heart skipped a beat. The man said it with such conviction. Naruto felt a chill run down his spine. What? What you see around you is all that's left after you fight with Sasuke. What do you mean? I already fought with Sasuke. And Konoha isn't like this. Years from now this will happen. Everything around them started to shift. The very ground beneath Naruto disappeared as he found himself in the Valley of the End again. This time it was different. He saw himself. Older. Stronger. Fighting as a giant golden energy fox. Sasuke was there too, fighting in a huge purple spirit robot thingy. What's going on? You got stronger, the man said with a smile. After we lost to Sasuke, Pervy Sage took me on a training trip for 3 years. It just wasn't for Sasuke. There were people after me. The Akatsuki. Then I found out there was so much more going on. A war broke out. Then, Sasuke and I fought. His future golden self was powering up what looked like 2 huge Rasengan, with blades. Sasuke was charging up what looked like a massive Chidori arrow. I thought after all I've been through I was strong enough. To be Hokage. To bring back Sasuke. Change him. The attacks released and met. A massive explosion took place as a great white light blinded everything around them. They were back on the rooftop again. The bonfire seemed to burn less brighter now. I had planned to meet you later. Much later, the older man told him. After you would go with Pervy Sage on the trip, but it looks like things didn't go seem as they had gone before. It makes sense. What do you mean? Naruto was confused at his words. At everything. It made no sense. He just saw a future version of himself, who was really cool with all those jutsu and all, fight Sasuke in what looked like a freak show battle. He was ecstatic he got so strong, but the grim outcome made him question things. I threw my consciousness, The older man looked at him and sighed. Naruto felt annoyed by that. I mean my mind back in time. My spirit or soul whatever helps you understand better so that we could prevent all this. How do I know you're telling the truth? Naruto stood apprehended pointing a finger at him. For all I know you could be the fox. This could all be a trick. Well, you're smarter than I was at your age, the older version of him smiled. That's a good thing, but you and I both know we're horrible liars. Naruto could agree to that. How can you prove you're me? You wear orange because you wanted people to notice you. You shout about becoming Hokage because you want people to respect you and see what you can do. The man looked at him with sharp mismatched eyes. All the while you despised how everyone would treat you. Like a loser. A worthless ant. No, I don't. You do. I should know. After all, I felt the same way as you once did. I don't blame you. Naruto looked at him with shame in his eyes. You don't. Why would I? His older self told him. I understand you. We're the same. You and I. It's okay to feel angry at people who treated you like your deadweight. Never even considering the thought that if someone taught you with just a little bit of extra care, you'd do better. Yeah, Naruto agreed. He was a slow learner. Dumb, not stupid. He knew when to notice things. People never putting their faith in you. The whole village saw you as the fox vessel, not a human. To them, harboring a beast was on the same grounds as a beast themselves. Naruto begrudgingly found himself agreeing to those words. Even your fellow ninja, always seeing you as the deadbeat of the batch. The charity. You don't have to put it so harshly. I can't. Not anymore. Your optimism is admirable, I once had it too. But I learned things as I grew up. Little me, older Naruto told him. People will disappoint you all the time. That's not true. Did the old man ever tell you who your parents are? No. Naruto felt his throat dry up. He said they died trying to save me. That's true. In fact, they gave up their very last breath to keep you alive. Older Naruto sat down in front of him, placing a hand on his head. Right before they sealed the fox into you. He grew pale. He felt a pain in your chest. Wait, but the one who sealed the fox was the fourth Hokage. He felt hollow hearing those words. His eyes watered up. The fourth Hokage was his father. His own father, sealed the beast into him. You're lying. I wish I could say I was. His future self said the words coldly. Why do you think you were taught the Rasengan? Because the pervert felt an immense amount of guilt, that's why. Did you tell you he's your godfather? What? Your name? Naruto. It came from the character in his first novel. Tales of an Utterly Gutsy Shinobi. It's a nice book, but there's one problem with it. The man looked at the flame. The fading flame. It has too much of a happy ending. He believes if we all work together, true peace can happen. You've seen what your friend did. You've seen what the village did to you for all these years. Do you think that can happen? Of course it can. I'll never give up. The future him finished. I know. I didn't give up. I hopelessly kept working to bring a future where the happiest outcome would happen. What did I get in return? Nothing but losses. That won't happen this time. It's already too late. The man pointed at the fire. By the time that fades, you'll die. But I don't want to die. He'd been holding back tears, but it was getting harder with each second. I can't die. I have to go back to the village. I have to keep my word to Sakura. Naruto stared at the older Naruto. He looked angry. After everything you did, all the hell you put yourself through. She still sided with him. No matter what happens, little me, she will never love you. Tears leaked out of rage as he threw his fist and punched the older man in the face. Everything around them shook. Though the punch itself didn't seem to affect the man. You can hit me as much as you like, it won't change the truth. Our dear Sakura chose Sasuke Uchiha at every turn. Even when he killed her. No, I'm sorry. He lied, she believed. She always did put her faith in him more than you. You, Naruto Uzumaki, will never be more than the annoying teammate she had. The words hurt more as his bleeding increased. But we can save her. Save them all. He looked up, his cheeks wet from the outpour. How? I'm going to die. I can save them for you, but it comes with a price. He needed to save Konoha. Sakura. All of them. Maybe even Sasuke. How? What do I have to do? You'll disappear into me. What? You and I are the same person. The soul is the same. He walked towards the flame. Naruto followed him. The current. You will die. You'll become a part of me. We'll be one, though I'll be the one in control. So I'm going to die. Yes, but actually no. The future him reassured him. We'll be one. I'll just be taking the reins. How do I know this isn't a trick? After all this. Alright, I'll indulge you. The older him leaned into his ear. I know you made out with your sexy clone. Naruto felt ashamed and shook his fists in anger. Many times. Enough. As if dying wasn't bad enough, now he was being kink-shamed. He felt horrible inside. What do I have to do? Use your hand to reach into your chest. Naruto did as he instructed and it went through his body. Though it didn't hurt, he grabbed hold of something. It was warm. Thrashing around a bit, he pulled it out. Something orange. It looked like a flame, but wasn't at the same time. What's this? I've been studying for years in the future on how to return to the past. The man scratched his head and let out a small laugh, much like he did when he was embarrassed. I never really gave it a name. It looks pretty. Yeah, it is. Isn't it? Like a spark. A spark. Yeah, like a spark. When you make a fire, there's always a spark, you know. The older him smiled. If only more people took the time to talk to you, Naruto Uzumaki. Then this day would never have come. He looked at the bonfire. The fire fades. Pour your spark into the flame, and I promise you this, I will bring about a better future. Alright. He waited for a second. He thought of all his loved ones. Save them. I'll try my best. Naruto Uzumaki dropped the tiny flame as it split into smaller flames into the bonfire. Nothing happened. Then the fire turned red. He looked at his fingers. Like sand, he was crumbling away as the fire burned brighter and spread around the area. He looked back at his future self and saw the man smiling. Smiling widely. Well, this is a horrible turn of events. White Zetsu muttered. They'd watched the Jinchuriki fight against the Uchiha. Their battle was impressive for Genin, and disappointing all the same. His corpse stranded on the boulder. A massive hole in his chest as the body was letting out blood like a fountain. The very waters were being tainted by it. In all honesty, Black Zetsu expected much more from the boy. He had the same stench Asura and Hashirama had. Now it was gone. Now he'd have to wait more years until his mother could return. We have to tell Obito about this. Madara's pawn would not be happy hearing about this. He was not happy either. Years and years of waiting. Now he'd have to wait more. What do we do about the body? There's nothing we can do. Black Zetsu stated. He felt angry, to be honest. We'll have to wait years until the Kyuubi reforms. Although it does save us the trouble of having to fight Konoha now. Well, they did bring it on themselves. White Zetsu chuckled. Honestly, you think they'd prize their Jinchuriki more instead of treating him like a fool. Much like we're tricking Obito. Only he's not smart enough to know everything. You don't know everything either, fool. Black Zetsu found the words ironic. Let's go. Yes, let's. What happened next was something Black Zetsu couldn't believe. Before his very eyes, White Zetsu was ripped apart from him. His brighter self looked at him before he started blowing up like a balloon. Searing hot steam burst through his skin as the flesh was melted off and evaporated. Black Zetsu felt an iron vice grip around his neck. He barely turned his head to stare into a Rinnegan and a Sharingan, surrounded by darkness. The boy physically changed too. He seemed taller and bulkier. His hair was now blood red and the grin on his face made him grow cold. Naruto Uzumaki looked at him with vicious intent. The hole in his clothes remained, but the flesh was knitting back. He tried to escape, but the boy wouldn't let him. Ah, Zetsu. Haven't seen you wretched face in a while. The last time I saw you, I remember snapping your neck. A bit like this. The fingers around his neck tightened further as he choked. His head grew heavy as the blood rushed to his head, his chest was exploding from the inwards as he felt his own body temperature rise. Then, he heard something. The sound of howling winds. He looked at the boy's other arm. A Rasengan. Black as night, with red blades encircling around it. The screams coming from it reeked of horror. Last time I didn't give you enough time to get a word or two in. This time I'll give you a chance. Tell your mommy, I said. Hi. What do you say to that? Black Zetsu helplessly watched as Naruto Uzumaki slowly brought this new Rasengan towards him. It was going to rip him apart. He needed to escape. He felt the force around his neck loosen a bit as he gasped. Moth. The harmonic sound of a jutsu erasing a personal problem was perhaps one of the most satisfying sounds one could ever hear. He watched as the giant Rasenshuriken dragged Black Zetsu along the statues of Madara and Hashirama, cutting its way upward through the earth and water before it exploded at the top of the fall. The explosion was even more beautiful. A little dome of dark red chakra blowing up to leave a mark on this land. Through the light he saw clearly how thousands upon thousands of little wind blades ripped every bit of skin, flesh and bone Zetsu had, the resulting explosion completely engulfing what little cells remained. Oh, and the destruction. Naruto Uzumaki smiled gleefully as the second shockwave came in. He was sure all those behind them had heard it. He laughed as he jumped down, dancing and stepping his way across the falling debris. His blood was all over the place on the bedrock beneath. Slapping his hands together, he created a layer of wind-laced chakra around him. This would stave off all the essence of smell just in case Kakashi's dog had too much of a sharp nose. He ran at full speed, taking off his forehead protector. Lava emerged from his hands as he melted it. Woohoo! His shout was like a screech of the wind as he sped past who knew how many places. Finally he stopped. He seemed to be in the woods of somewhere, though he wasn't sure if he was in the fire country anymore. Placing his hand on a tree he sent a pulse of natural energy through it and waited for it return. Natural resonance needed a total of 5 seconds to work its magic. A highly concentrated burst of natural energy would be sent down through an organic medium to all the living forms of nature, allowing him to create a mental map in his mind. Dark woods, deep caves, plenty of moss, and a huge number of swamps. Now if I were a betting man, I'd say I was in the land of swamps. He broke twig and began to draw a map of the entire area, encircling one particular area. He looked at his arms and legs. Extending his arm completely, he wiped away at the air as thousands of tiny droplets of water came together to form a shiny, crystal liquid mirror. Naruto looked at himself rubbing his chin. The fusion had physically made his body age a bit, he looked as if he was 17 or 18. Bah, it doesn't matter. I do need new clothes though. He discarded the orange jacket, letting futon chakra make it disappear. He'd get clothes later, but first he needed to check out an abnormal form of chakra he felt. Focusing with his right eye, the arched blades from the tomo emerged blending in with the 6 axes. He swirled out of the world, gliding through the dark void before he stepped out into the light again. A shrine, huh? What secrets do you have for me? He tried step in through the gates, but something stopped him. An invisible wall. Let's see. Who will win? An invisible wall made by a seal or a god. He blew a raspberry as his right arm glowed. Reaching into the wall, he grabbed it like it was a veil and tore away at it. The ground began to rumble as he ran up the stairs. Something was emerging from the ground, a block of earth. The 4 walls disintegrated as a body of a giant black snake fell. The freaky thing was very long, dark purple scaled, and multiple heads were protruding out of it. Well, I'll be damned. A demon. Here I thought all of them had died out. Demons are mythic beasts once told as scary ghost tales to children. They had once roamed the lands long before the emergence of militarized society, before chakra was weaponized. Those demons were once just normal creatures, albeit bigger in size. When the 10 tails was separated for the first time by the sage, it sent out a shockwave of corrupt chakra that affected various species. They'd come to be known as demons. From what he found out from the tailed beasts, these things were like prey to the Biju. Kurama in particular was fond of killing demons and devouring their essence. No wonder he had a taste for hatred. He peered into his mind. The process was almost done, but he wanted to get a few words in. An endless canvas of white space with a black circular mass suspended in the middle. 6 large towers surrounded the sphere. The yang half of Kurama was being absorbed into the massive ball, bound and pierced by bladed chains. The mightiest of the tailed beasts, nothing compared to the spiritual and mental power he had possessed over the course of his life. You! The beast roared at him, its vile breath making him retch a bit. What the hell are you? Don't you recognize me? It's me, Naruto. Though you can call me Yami if you want. The fox's eyes widened. Oh ho, you do recognize me. Remember when you made me, Foxy? All the negativity and hatred inside Naruto which you kept festering with your essence. How does it feel to be fucked by your own plans? How are you this strong? I sense my chakra in you. All of it, and the others. And those eyes, how did you get those eyes? What did you do? Geez, the beast was loud. Oh well, Kurama was partially responsible for his existence. Well, since you and your filthy had a hand in making me, I'll let you know. Naruto, Yami as he called himself sometimes, sat down on the fox's face, its red glaring eyes focusing on him. I'm from the future. A future where we became friends. The beast scoffed. Even now it had pride. You can do that all you want, I speak the truth. You see, Foxy, a few years from now a 4th war will break out. You being at the center of it as some guy is trying to bring back the 10 tails, Kurama. All that pride seemed to have gone now. Naruto smirked. Long story short, Foxy, I played a part in the war to keep it from coming back. Then the guy who killed my parents, the one who broke you out of my mother became its imperfect Jinchuriki. We got it out of him. Then your old buddy Madara decided to bet the massive he is and became the Jinchuriki. He almost killed me too, but thankfully Obito that piece of shit was able to put a piece of you in me. He even gave up his eyes to me later. He was dying and at the time I was pretty shitty using it. Then we find out the real plot twist. The queen bitch Kagaya was responsible for all this, somehow. Did not see that coming. In fact it seemed to arrive out of nowhere. Just like me finding out I was the reincarnation of the sage's son, as was Sasuke. I mean it made sense, but it really didn't. I'm not complaining. Naruto opened his palms, showing the marks of a white sun and a dark moon on them. Once we started fighting Kagaya it got even at times. She tried separating me and Sasuke into different dimensions. It didn't work. We were getting the edge on her and then, she killed Sakura. And Kakashi. Man, it hurt so much. I had never felt so terrible in my life as I did in that moment. Sensei died in my arms as Sakura reached out for Sasuke. She didn't even spare me a glance. Hopelessly, I tried to save them, but Kagaya got the drop on me. I was lost, dazed and confused, angry and sad. She ripped off an arm of mine, and was going for my head next if Sasuke didn't save me. It's funny, the one guy the first tried to save, died to make sure I lived. He even transferred every bit of his chakra into me. All of it. That's when I got this. Naruto pointed to his Rinnegan. He stood up, balling up his fists as dark tendrils of chakra emerged from him. The moment he died I felt something inside me break free. I didn't care anymore if it was the end. That little seed of darkness you planted mixed with the chakra anvil of Indra, and of course the horror I went through, it all came together. What you're looking at Kurama is an abomination. The fox proclaimed as only his head remained outside of the black massive sphere. Your hatred. All the darkness of man in one vessel. Well, not necessarily. I am the endgame of one extreme end of the spectrum. Naruto shrugged and spun on his foot. After that I fought Kagaya. For months. Maybe a year. Unhinged me was very creative and I drew power from Kagaya's dimension, courtesy of having the same roots of chakra as her through you and your siblings. I fought her in all those realms until we went back to my own realm. She prized that bloody tree over everything, so I made sure to make her suffer. I would take away the one thing she cherished the most. I absorbed that tree. Every single person. All their chakra. Inside me. You fool. Chains pierced through his eyes as the beast yelled in pain. Its bellow a cry of terror. Did you have any idea what you did? You're right, I was a fool. Doing that, I unknowingly killed every single person on the planet, but hey, at least I sealed her away. Naruto walked off of Kurama's nose as only his mouth remained out of the void. Then I absorbed you remaining half, all the other tailed beasts and began studying. I was all alone in the world and it made me realize just how much damage had been done. The world would be healed, but not a single human around. More hooked chains appeared, violently sinking themselves through the gums and tongue and sides of the Kyuubi's face. Yes, me. Just me. I didn't want that, so I started experimenting with my powers. What could I do? How much could I do? What were my limits? Could I go on without taking a shit for the rest of my life? So many questions and I had so much time. I tried to create humans. It didn't exactly work out as I planned. I waited years for nature to run its course so life could find a way again. It didn't. I was growing tired of being so alone. I created endless clones and created a fake society filled with people to convince myself it was normal again. I lied so much to myself, but in the end it was all fake. So I decided to throw myself back before all this started. It wasn't easy. Years and years of research. Trials and errors. In complete isolation. I threw my consciousness back one day at a time. Then I started using more complicated seals, infusing chakra and fucking with the very soul of humans. Thank God, the Reaper Death Seal was used in tandem to the 8 trigrams. I had something to navigate towards. Now here I am, a weary traveler from a dark future here to bring a better one. He pushed Kurama into the void completely. It became larger than before as he felt more energy swirl into him. 8.5 to go. He was back in front of the dead snake. Dragon. Whatever the fuck it was. Placing his left hand, he used his yin source chakra to pull out all the chakra inside the body of this demon. 2 chakras. Bringing his right hand closer to the flame-like ether he pulled out the fragments that seemed very friendly. It was white, it was pure, it was so fucking worthless. He crushed it as the other bit of chakra, a mishmash between black, purple and red thrashed around. Closing his fist, he felt the surge of more chakra inside him. A bit salty, he joked to himself, but not bad at all. Also, not all of it. Where is the rest? He closed his eyes and sat down. Natural energy gathered around him. Winds blew harshly as red marks appeared around his eyes and on his forehead, a black circle. A red line circled around it, seeping its way in towards the circle in a spiral. Opening his eyes he looked to the west, locking in on the chakra source. Kamui. A moment later he was in front of another shrine. There were 9 people inside there. They seemed to be fighting with each other, stopping to look at him. One of them, a guy with a beard, rushed to him. Stupid. The moment he got close, Naruto only waved with his hand and it tore through the man, in half. His body halves fell on each side of him as blood covered his face, hair and body. The rest were shocked by his actions, they couldn't move. Good. I always wanted to try this with actual targets. He slapped his hands together. Wind release. Judgment cut. He separated his hands and hundreds of blades of winds emerged from around him, spreading in all directions as the remaining 8 were cut, hacked, torn, ripped, shredded and turned into spaghetti as parts of them lied around everywhere. He looked at the glowing blue well. Grabbing the veil once more, he crushed it as purple smoke rose in it around him. He grabbed it and similar to the carcass he had seen, the smoke was spiritual energy and it resembled that thing, albeit this was on a much smaller scale. I am really not in the mood for lectures from another beast, so just stop wriggling around. He used his left hand to drain out the remaining demon chakra. Erasing the other one went quicker than he thought. That was when more people arrived at the shrine. Groups of people. They dressed weirdly and he scoped them. They all their eyes on him, armed to the teeth with their weapons. They didn't interest him. However, making a circle with his index finger and thumb, he brought it near his Sharingan as he focused one person. Long pale blonde hair, lavender eyes, the hint of a burning in his loin. A woman. A pretty one too. Naruto felt something pulse inside him. A hunger long forgotten. Good lord, he felt more excited than ever. Just you wait. He smiled widely, licking his lips. You will get the Naruto Uzumaki special. Danzo Shimura listened to Kakashi's report. It was a real shame what he became. There was a time when the White Fang's son could have strived harder to be a better shinobi. Sheer tenacity, adaptive intellect, countless jutsu and a Sharingan, all the makings of a possible S-rank shinobi, yet he'd spend his time failing teams, failing himself to be a better ninja and failing the village by extension. Above all else, Danzo prided the shinobi of Konoha. He didn't like the fact how forgiving his village could be sometimes, but simply turning into a military state had no profits either. If that happened, trade for the village would decrease and they couldn't have that. That said, he didn't like the sense of liberty the third Hokage had instilled in his forces, the effect remaining throughout the later generations. Today was an example of that. The Kyuubi lost. The Uzumaki dead. The last Uchiha fled. All essential pieces for the future. Jiraiya was outside the room, hanging by the wall as he has done since he was a child, listening in closely. Perhaps the boy was in grief he could not mask. Is there anything else you wish to add, Hitaki? Koharu asked him. No, ma'am. The rest of the genin, Homura spoke, concern in his voice. Are they mortally wounded? Neji Hyuga, Shoji Akamichi and Rock Lee are in serious condition, the Jonin told them. However, they are out of danger as far as I've been told. They'll need time to recover. Danzo narrowed his visible eye. We all need time. All eyes were on him, Tsunade's especially. We lost our Jinchuriki today. For the first time since the village was founded, we are truly defenseless. Should the other villages know? He was more than just a Jinchuriki. Tsunade's voice was heavy and filled with wrath. You should treat him more than just a weapon. He's dead. At least give him that much respect. I visited the memorial tablet, he continued. I paid my respects. I do every time a shinobi of note dies. When the first Hokage died, I paid my respects. As I did when Lord Tobirama sacrificed himself. The fourth sacrificed himself to seal off the Biju and keep the village safe. Hiruzen died protecting the village from a rogue student. So yes, I paid my respects to the boy who tried to fulfill his duty to the village with his last breath. I moved on. We all have to. You. Calm down, Princess Tsunade, Koharu spoke first. Danzo speaks harshly, but he is telling the truth. He is. Homura took up his side as well. Rightfully so. As of now, we're weaker than we've ever been. Sasuke Uchiha gone to Orochimaru. No doubt he'll tell the snake what he's done. If he leaks that information. Danzo leaned back into the comfort of his chair. Tsunade was bickering with the other two, sparing him a scathing glare every now and then. Why did she think he was the enemy? That he would harm Konoha? He loved the village more than her. Than anyone in that room. Than everyone in the village. He was ready to give the last full measure of devotion it would take to keeping the village safe and strong. The noise died when Jiraiya entered the room. The Toad Sage did not look the goof he usually was. To Danzo, he would always be that child who used to be tied to a post by Hiruzen. He was just bigger now. Although, he could say he definitely respected Jiraiya more than the other two Sannin. At least he didn't turn his back on the village when things didn't go their way. Even now here he was doing what was needed. Danzo Shimura is right. Jiraiya's words seemed to have a prominent effect as the table in front of the Hokage was turned into broken splinters. You can't be serious. Tsunade's voice was strong, but on the verge of breaking. She gave away much more than she thought. Tobirama would no doubt be disappointed at his descendant. The girl was knee-deep in grief from the boy's death. She was compromised, not fit for her role. He expected the same from Jiraiya, but surprisingly he held more composure. Perhaps losing people he loved and trusted over the years had finally strengthened his heart. Those students he taught after the Second War, the fourth Hokage, Hiruzen. Conflict and loss made better men out of lesser ones. The child has grown. Naruto Uzumaki is dead. Jiraiya paused, shaking his head with eyes closed. He wasn't prepared to fight Sasuke Uchiha, not in the state he was in. I'm sure the boy was tapping into the cursed mark, and if he is as good as you say he is, Kakashi, he must have adapted to it far quicker than we thought. Killing a Jinchuriki no easy feat, especially one that happens to be an Uzumaki. He's dead, Tsunade. He's gone. There's nothing we can do about it. So what do you expect me to do? Just forget about him. This time Tsunade's eyes were teary. She was stricken right in the heart. If you think I knew the boy longer than you, Tsunade, Jiraiya cut her off. He was angry. Danzo liked it. He put his trust in me. I taught him the Rasengan. I saw him in the same way I saw Minato, even though I didn't get to spend much time with him. If I'd known he was on this mission, I'd have gone to aid him. Maybe he would have lived. I arrived here too late. I was supposed to take him on a trip with me. To train the boy. Believe me, I know how you feel. Nothing will change the loss we suffered today. That seemed to make Tsunade keep more composure. He looked at Kakashi. The brat didn't hide the resentment in his eyes. You couldn't find his body. His headband. Anything. Not a trace of him. Except a few torn bits of muscle tissue scattered about, and blood. Lots of it. Kakashi's voice heavy. It reminded him of the time when he tried to make the boy join Root. Again. Such wasted potential. I trust my nose, and my summons. If someone else was there or moved his body, I would have known. His scent ended there. Pakun and I were in tail as the rest of the Anbu units went to pick up the rest of those in the retrieval squad. One moment I could smell them both, then Sasuke's smell was getting fainter. I got the hint of iron. Tons of it. Then I felt a massive explosion take place in the trail ahead. I saw red flashes of chakra being shot into the sky. I could only guess that Naruto. His body released all the chakra. Danzo offered his 2 cents. He'd seen this before. When a Jinchuriki is killed, an explosion of chakra usually follows. At the end of the day, the Biju or raw masses of chakra given form. The moment its host dies, they seek rebirth. It has to assimilate itself and proceeds to bombard its way out of its vessel's lifeless body. I'm guessing the moment Genin Naruto Uzumaki died, the Kyuubi's chakra became too volatile and resulted in the destruction at Valley of the End. Though, it might take years before it fully forms again. The Nine Tails has the most chakra out of them all, it's only natural it will take more time. The landmark of Konoha. A symbol to show the power that Konoha gone because some Uchiha had gone wayward. History liked to rewrite itself. Now the fox was gone too. Our enemies cannot know. Homura spoke with reason. The moment they learn, war will come knocking on our doors. They'll try to invade us. Iwa is more likely to attack us than the rest. Kaharu's voice was laced with concern. At least we can rely on the sand as allies. To control that information, Danzo advised, we'll need to control what people know in the village. Tsunade looked at him incredulously. You mean to hide his death? From everyone? Yes, princess. We can't let it leak out. We can't let our enemies know how weak we are right now. We have to control this as much as we can. By any means necessary. Tsunade Senju, granddaughter of the first, sat back down. Her mind was furious now, but she needed to calm down. She needed to remember she was the Hokage. That the village came before everyone else. Fine, she finally said the words he wanted her to say. But I want Sasuke Uchiha back in the village. He'll have to answer for his crimes. I want to see his filthy, red-eyed traitorous face before I personally rip it apart. Danzo and the rest nodded. Shisui's eye beneath the bandages felt overworked. He wasn't an Uchiha. The eye didn't fully accept him, and could only control his victims to a certain degree. He needed to work on it more. Perhaps if he had both eyes, then it would have worked the way he intended it to. His arm needed an update too. Now all of it would have to wait. So much work, so little time. The simple pleasures of life were the best. When every single human on the planet was gone, he tried to recreate them. It was such a pain. He failed. Instead, he created humanoid versions of those beasts the Jubi spawned during the Fourth War. They were good, sturdy and durable things. Though they were meant more for war and battle than normal life and its ups and downs. He recreated White Zetsu according to his image. They lacked the same essence of humanity. The soul wasn't there. Perhaps if he had living breathing subjects then it would have been different. So he took the easy way out, clones. Creating a fake life for himself. Villages, cities, countries. And it was so boring and fake. He even played God for a while as he observed his clones play out scenarios for him, lasting up to decades. He had tried to lie to himself that this would be his new normal. The emptiness of the world drove him mad. If it weren't for a random thought crossing his mind, he would have never found this solution. Thank whatever gods that had created him, for he found people again. He had found a time when the world not yet ruined. More importantly, he found women again. He felt her walls tightened around his member again, like razor wire around necks. Not the best comparison he had, but hey, after mercilessly killing every single person who entered the shrine, it was the only analogy he had. Her legs jittered, body shivered as she let out another cry of pleasure. Naruto loomed over her as the priestess, body shook like she was getting her brain reset. Her head reeled back as he repeatedly kept shoving his member into her depths, her hands came to his backside and her legs wrapped around his buttocks, safely keeping him snug inside her. A silly smile was on her face now, her hair a mess and her eyes disheveled from long hours of fantabulous fucking. At first she was terrified of him, he suspected it was probably due to him killing everyone around him. The priestess tried to run and the moment he touched her, something burst out of her. Ethereal form of chakra which tried to protect her. He cast that little shitshow away along with her clothes and the moment he got inside her he felt so whole. She was cursing at first, so unlike of a priestess, but with every thrust she began to resist less as every inch of his plunged inside of her. Her virgin wrapped so tightly around his red member, each time he thrust inside her the priestess would jiggle so delightfully. Hot and heavy breaths left her mouth and nostrils as she looked at him with glossy eyes and bit her lip, enticing him more. The longer it went, the more pleasure she felt. She moved her hips better each time he hammered his length into her. With every kiss she shamelessly moaned more, as his hands found her, squeezing and caressing them, her nipples grew stiff and red as his teeth tugged at them. Her cunt grew wetter and tighter with each passing moment as her shrills became more excited. She couldn't hold back her voice no longer as she screamed in bliss. He didn't stop there, he wouldn't. He'd been without this for so long. He pulled out of her and she looked at him in a surprised manner. He grabbed the priestess by her blonde locks as the head of his tapped against her lips. She looked at him in a cowering manner before he yanked a bit at her hair. She didn't need to told twice as she slowly dragged her tongue along his shaft, all the way down to the base. She had opened her mouth to say something, but really he wasn't in the mood for whatever she had to say. In his mind, she should have been gagging instead of talking, and with that thought he grabbed the back of her head and forced half his into her mouth. Her tongue pressed against the underside of his as he moved her head along the length as rumblings came from her throat and tears leaked out of her eyes. She gagged each time he would move her head to a little closer to the base of his. His entire member glistened with her saliva as she gagged and choked, soon all of it was inside her. Her nose desperately breathed into his crotch, she shook so much he thought she was going to faint. Finally he felt his own climax approach as he face-fucked the priestess and finally he pulled out as ropes of his seed splattered against her face, her and abdomen. The girl fell on her back, shivered and breathed hotly as her wet twitched. He had flipped her over on her hands and knees, and rubbed his against her folds, as she swayed her hips side to side, slowly. He plunged into her, made her shriek while his hands gripped her hips. Her voice had changed then, much sweeter, more melodic, mostly shameful as he took a moment to relish the look on her face as she looked back at him, cheeks red. She said, "No, please. Enough." And then she moved back and forth on her own, pushing her rear end against his crotch. He chuckled before grabbing a fistful off her soft ass, slapping it as she moved faster and faster with each spank. One could say she did it out of fear, one could also say she wanted it. After all, the priestess did slam her buttocks against him like a common whore from then on, making him return the favor as he rammed into her womb over and over again, eventually filling her up with his spunk. After pulling out of her, he realized he needed to push her just a little more to push her over the edge. Like a gentleman, he asked the priestess her name. Xian. What a pretty name for a pretty flower. He could have gone just for her asshole, but where was the fun in just that? When he summoned his clones, and aroused, Xian only stared back with disbelief in her eyes, along with smidgens of lust. Now that was a real gold experience. The sound of flesh slapping flesh was rhythmic, in sync with him and the boys, that's what he called them, as they shoved their into every hole she had. 'Twas was too much for the pure, pretty priestess to handle. After they had their way with her, twisting her, sandwiching her, treating her how a 12-year-old treated a sock, and deposited their sperm in her like it was a bank, her mind was crippled by it. Also the fact that he was overloading her senses with natural energy to make her enjoy it more had something to do with it. Every bit of resistance that was in her was snuffed out from Uzumaki Gangbang Boogaloo Special. After that she spread her legs to widths rivaled only by Sakura's forehead as she asked him, nay begged him to shove his rod deep inside her. Who was he to deny a woman what she wanted? Naruto thrust into her with more strength as her mouth came agape each time he rammed into her. Her tongue lolled out and became cross-eyed as he increased the speed of his strokes. He stood up with the priestess still in his lap, her limbs locking themselves around him, wishing so badly not to be separated from him. He continued jutting up into her for several more minutes as he felt her walls tightening so tightly around his he thought his was fucking its way into heaven. Way his hammered into her and reached deep enough to kiss the entrance to her womb with each thrust wasn't something new, but the way her walls clamped around him with sheer dedication made him think about all the past time he'd wasted, chasing Sakura for nothing, not noticing how a girl like Hinata would have probably done this with him without a hesitation, or any other chick he didn't think about. He just focused on being Hokage and bringing Sasuke back. He lost his virginity while on the trip with Jiraiya, but he was of a different mood back then. All of that time wasted. Wasted? He thought and aggressively hammered into her, lowering his head as he bit onto her nipple. Xian breathed and moaned and suddenly all her limbs clenched tight around his torso as her muscles wildly convulsed on his member. A gag. Fill me up again, master. Oh, those sweet words motivated him so fucking much as he fucked her ruthlessly. Her tight went cunt became a sloppy mess as he buried himself deep inside her, his fingers digging deep into the flesh of her buttocks. His own climax approached. He bit her ear as she happily grinned, tears of ecstasy rolled down her cheeks as she felt him unleashing his seed inside her. So much of it. The priestess was elated, gasping in joy as she felt her insides went white with his seed, becoming full and ripe. Fuck. Naruto said as he pulled his member out of her. Hot. Loads of jizz poured out from her cunt as she fell against the ground, her sweet delicious body glistened with sweat and stains of his cum smeared all over her. You're pretty good. I haven't fucked a woman for over 100 years and the first one I get is a priestess. Oh. Jiraiya would kill for stuff like this. A Hyageg, was all she said. His seed kept leaking out of her. Her eyes were glossed over. I don't know cunt speak that well yet, but I'm sure you said something nice. Naruto began to sit down as wood emerged from beneath, forming a smooth, leaning chair for him. From the knowledge he'd absorbed from one of the last lackeys guarding the priestess, This was land of demons he was in, and the demonic chakra he'd absorbed belonged to a demon named Morio. His abilities were interesting too, making an indestructible army made of stones, creating a darkness that robbed people of their sight, and, most importantly, tentacles. A powerful demon, but so weak compared to the monsters he'd faced in his life. Still, it gave him ideas. Ideas he'd put to use once getting out of this shrine. First things first, a wooden table emerged from the ground. Indents began to dig into the wood as a map roughly resembling all the nations formed. 8 red marks appeared on the map. 2 in clouds, 2 in stone, 2 in the mist, 1 in waterfall, and 1 in the sand. 8 pieces he needed. Time travel, more particularly, time displacement of the mind to certain point required a cost. And he had to give up 1/3 of all of his chakra to arrive here. He was still strong, but something inside him felt empty and craved for more chakra of the Biju. Perhaps he just wanted to fill up the hole, and then have some surplus. Who do I go after first? Go to sand and leave the village to rot? Go after waterfall and make Iwa invade them? Or do I go after Iwa to make Kumo arm themselves up? Maybe the Kiri, get the Akatsuki all riled up. I could give the Akatsuki a visit too. Hey. He chuckled a bit. The sheer irony. The geezer towed at Mt. Myoboku foretold of this. That he'd bring peace or destruction. He had tried the former with all his might. What did he get in return? Despair. Loss and, he looked down to see Shion had woken up from her fervor. A trail of semen started from where she'd been resting all the way to where she was now, swallowing his length whole as her nose poked against his waist. She bobbed her head up and down as she savored his taste, her tongue circling around his member. She breathed in sharply before going all the way down, choking and gagging. Finally she slid off of it, her mouth drooling all over her favorite meal apparently. I was gonna tell you that I'm about to go take the rest of your country over, but I guess that can wait a little bit. She smiled before dutifully going back to sucking him off. She stood on the fingers of the beast. To her it was nothing less than that. Made out of stone, but there was something menacing about the demonic statue. The shackles that kept its hands at bay, its 10 eyes closed, and the very way it looked. There was a shroud of mystery around it. Quite frankly, it unnerved her sometimes. She heard the flap of robes as someone else stood on the fingers now. Rippled eyes remained omniscient as ever, the power they held was unrivaled. Such strength only belonged to someone who would use it well, one who would be just, one who knew how cruel the world was, the pain it inflicted on those who could not defend themselves. He was God's chosen Messiah. His avatar. The one who would bring balance and peace. It's time, he said as 6 phantoms appeared on the fingers. Silhouettes of colors changed in a rhythmic fashion, their eyes however remained fixed. She noticed his eyes moving to the empty finger. Strange. Indeed. Sasori spoke first, his tone seemed more agitated than usual. Zetsu is articulate. More than I can say about some of us. Oi, doll fucker. Hidan remained crass as ever. A beast wearing a human skin. We were only late that one time, but you sure like bringing it up every fucking time. Maybe don't give me that chance. Motherfuck. Kisami's chuckle interrupted the banter. You're all so entertaining. This is concerning. Itachi Uchiha's red eyes looked at her in pain. Perhaps Zetsu encountered hostile shinobi in some enemy region. Assuming he was sent there. Itachi Uchiha. This one always made Conan take his words with salt. A man who killed his kin was a man she could never trust. Pain to some extent felt the same way as her. There were subtle hints of defiance in him, asking questions no one did, but he chose his words carefully. He wasn't a snake like Orochimaru, but he knew ways to skin one. We received word your brother fled from the village, Pain relayed to them. Zetsu was sent there to gauge how strong the Jinchuriki was, how strong your brother was considering the ones who escorted him were from the Sound Village. Why haven't we killed him yet? I'm sure we'll get a nice price for his head. Kakuzu had been vocal about his dislike about the Sannin from the first day. Pretty obvious, isn't it? Deidara shrugged before smiling. This is a more personal matter. Regardless, Conan grew tired of the small talk. It always devolved into banter, as if they were friends. We need to find out what happened at the end. I know what happened, Sasori said. Well, at least I know what happened between the Jinchuriki and Itachi's brother. Pain narrowed his eyes. Next time, Sasori, start with relevant information instead of your gripes with people being late. He was annoyed by this, and so was she. Sasori's eyes looked bloodshot at those words and his hunched form rattled a bit. He scoffed a bit. The spy I have at Orochimaru's village. He told me Sasuke Uchiha arrived, without the group that was supposed to bring him back. So that's why you went all Anbu for a while, senpai. There's more. What would that be? Sasori hesitated for a moment. Sasuke Uchiha apparently arrived looking like an old-school mist graduate, and when asked by the snake who he killed, the boy refused to answer. I can only assume the one he killed was the fucking Jinchuriki. Hidan cursed out. That stupid fuck. Of all the people he had to kill before going to that fuck-mothering faggot of a snake, he kills the one guy we need. Just fucking great. The tirade went before Pain breathed deeply. The Jushinist had calmed down a little by then. Your spy, Sasori, can we trust him? He could be lying. Perhaps Orochimaru has him. He's helped us foil the snake's plots before. I don't see any reason why he wouldn't dance to my strings anymore. If that is true, Conan began as she realized how much of a wrench had been thrown in their plans. Then we'll have to wait years before the Kyuubi reforms. Deidara shook his head. Man, your brother screwed us over big time, Itachi. Here I thought we were gonna move soon on all of them. That's another reason why I sent Zetsu, Pain told them all. The battle should have worn them out both. I told him if the Jinchuriki was too exhausted to resist, then he'd bring the Kyuubi here. That's quite devious of you, Kisame smirked at the Rinnegan wielder. Here I thought we were above such petty methods. To bring peace we'll use any means necessary. The rest of them said nothing. We'll regroup later once we have more information. For now keep gathering funds. Should any of you cross Orochimaru's lackeys, make sure you get the truth out of them. Pain's eyes were locked onto Itachi's, and as usual they gave nothing away. Like dust in the wind they disappeared. Pain got down from the stone digit as Conan followed suit, walking behind Tendo as they entered the inner chamber. 5 paths remained spread out as her friend, her family, looked at her with concern in his eyes. This is going to cause problems, Conan. Nagato sighed. Her friend was tired of this. Of all of this. How much longer would he have to carry this burden with him? Do you think Zetsu went elsewhere? To Madara perhaps? No, Nagato assured her. Madara said he was occupied with the hidden mist. Apparently one of the Jinchuriki fled the forces. Problems everywhere, Conan thought to herself. They'd worked so hard to get this far. Just a year or two was what they needed to bring about the change Madara had promised them. They didn't trust him, not completely, but as long as Nagato was alive and had the Rinnegan, she knew the Uchiha wouldn't act out against them. What should we do? Nagato seemed deep in thought before he closed his eyes. There's no point in going after the Jinchuriki right now. If we go for one of them now, all the others will be hidden away, not to mention word about the Kyuubi Jinchuriki's apparent death should be spreading soon. Orochimaru is not above slander. He seeks to harm us as well. Should we take care of Orochimaru then? Conan suggested. In her opinion, that snake had lived too long. She still remembered what he said all those years ago when they were children. Not yet. He has Sasuke Uchiha, and if he did kill the Kyuubi Jinchuriki, he's one worth watching. No doubt Orochimaru will go to major lengths to keep himself and his vessel safe at any costs, including pointing fingers at us. You're being very careful about this. He's one of the few shinobi who've lived through the wars. His mind worries me more than his actual strength. What do we until then, Nagato? We wait, Nagato told her, and liberate as many villages as we can. She nodded. He was right. In the midst of this she forgot what the Akatsuki really was. The Akatsuki was the hope this world needed. By any means necessary. She rubbed her neck with the sanitizer again. No matter how many times she did this, she could feel the stench of his mouth. She'd been brought here to help heal their leader. The lecherous old man bit her neck, his tongue licked her, and every so often he'd feel a bit too liberal with his hands as he rubbed her waist and legs. At least Zosui didn't let her get completely molested this time, for after she was done, he sent Karen back to her quarters to eat and sleep. You have work to do later, he told her. They'd arrived in the land of demons last night and would go deeper into the country to make some deals with them. No doubt she'd be a display of what the hidden grass had to offer. To show the blessings she could offer. Her powers were more of a curse than a blessing. All those healing abilities, yet she couldn't heal the bite marks that she got after being drained. There were times when she thought she'd break free from this sentence she'd been given since she was a child. That she would make it out of this hell that her life had become. In the dead of the night, these thoughts would bloom. Though she never said them aloud. For even when she slept, they kept watch over her. At least they didn't ruin her sleep. Zosui had made it clear that the village healer was never to be disturbed while resting. After all, Karen was of great value to him, and given how the hidden grass was so good at negotiations, it only made sense that he'd keep her healthy. He didn't even let her keep weapons inside the room, should she fall in despair. What her kind captor didn't know was she had attempted it before, once. Her wrists were slashed with the hidden blades she kept in her glasses. Just as soon as the slits appeared, the blood dried and the wound closed just as fast. She hated her blood, her lineage, her red hair, everything about her that screamed Uzumaki. A cursed name. All of them had died. She was the only one left. She stared out of the window as black clouds gathered in the sky, but amidst them in the center, a red giant floated ominously. The news she'd heard about the blood moon was right. Full, bright and crimson, it looked like someone took her hair and turned into a giant light bulb. The 16-year-old looked at the celestial body and remembered her mother. She told her as a child that there was a goddess who lived on the moon, how she'd listened to prayers of children and granted their wishes. Karen told her mother so many times the goddess didn't listen, that she'd prayed for them to leave the stupid village, but it didn't happen. That's when her mother told her they were Uzumaki, they were special, and their wishes would only be granted when the red moon appeared. An Uzumaki moon she called it, the kind woman. She cried many nights, to countless full moons to bring her mother back. Later, Karen realized what her mother had told her, a children's tale. She had stopped being a child the moment Zosui started using her to heal Kusa's wounded, in some cases using the girl as a negotiating tool for certain lords. After that, every time she'd see a red moon, she'd remember how trapped and helpless she was. Yet a part of her still wished it was true. Many times she wished she would die. Other times she wished her mother returned. Most of the times it was for freedom. None of that was happening anytime soon. With great contempt in her heart, she touched her neck, the spot she'd been washing, she gripped it tightly. Her crimson eyes looked at the bloody moon with venom in her mind. I wish that pervert would die. I pray these stupid guards die. Zosui, I hope you die in the worst way. The wind knocked against her window a bit, the cool breeze which had been present all day had been getting sharper with each passing hour into the night. At least I'll get a good night's worth of sleep. With those words she faded into the dark and then, saw red. Gasping loudly, Karen jumped up from her bed and breathed hard. Her mind's eye activated on its own, it saw something. Where did it come from? Why didn't I sense it before? Red, outside the village. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. They were spiraling their way into the village. All of them had the same chakra, tons of it. She breathed hotly and sweat profusely at how much chakra she felt. She wasn't sure if she could call it chakra at all. So big. It's too much. It's way too much. Dark, malevolent, and fast, they were inside the village already, spreading like wildfire. The villagers' chakra, it was disappearing. Some of them weakened, the others completely vanished. Her hands began to shake, Her heart felt like it was trying to tear out of her chest. She rushed to the door and desperately banged her fists against it. Open the door. We're under attack. The doors opened quickly and the guards looked at her with surprise. Everything looked so hazy to her. The hell is wrong with you? Intruders in the village, 5 of them. She tried to make sense as her legs shook uncontrollably. They were getting closer, sweeping through the village as she felt more people disappearing. Some being stamped out. So quickly. Zosui, you have to let him know. We need to leave. Stop shouting at me, you bitch. The guard seemed annoyed at her. If this is one of your ruses too. An explosion went off somewhere as the house shook to its very core. One of the guards rushed to the closest window. She couldn't breathe. It's here. Oi, what the hell is going on out there? Fire outside. Someone broke into the compound. The guard gripped her hand as they rushed to Zosui's room. It was empty. Karen desperately looked for his signal. He'd get her out of here. He needed her use. He'd take her out of here. Where is he? The redhead closed her eyes and tried to calm herself down. It became dark before it all turned red again. She felt something in her gut. A warmth grew inside her. Or was it a void? She couldn't tell. It was getting hotter and hotter. Her mind could only focus on that absurd chakra. Massive, towering and unending. What seemed like 5 to her previously now felt like one giant mass of chakra spread all over the village and well beyond it. As far as her eye could gaze, all it saw was a world painted red. It's everywhere. The sound of something crashing caused her to see again. They were outside the guest house. A fire had broken out and noises of arms being taken up invaded the air. Orders were barked and the sounds of men screaming filled up the place around her. Hey, where's the Lord Zosui? The guard shook her. She couldn't sense him. The chakra around her was too overwhelming. Listen closely, you bitch. If you don't answer me, what the hell is that? She turned her head and saw people rise out of the ground. The sound of earth cracking apart and stones shattering increased as they stood with swords and spears in hand. They tall and large, with red eyes and wore stone armor. In fact, they looked as if they were made out of stone. They walked forward slowly at first, then they began to run towards them, albeit not that fast. What the hell are those things? One of the guards kicked the soldier with full force, but it did not budge. The stone soldier grabbed the leg of the guard and crushed it. He screamed in pain as he kept hitting the soldier, but it would not let go. She watched in horror as the soldier raised its sword and brought it down on him. A clang resounded as the blade hit the ground. The guard split in two, his organs all over the ground along with half his body. The soldier threw the other half away as the rest of them marched forward. Once again she was dragged away by the soldier through the courtyard. They were on the run. She witnessed the men who guarded the compound being killed, stabbed, maimed, ripped and torn by the stone soldiers who seemed invincible. For every one stone soldier that fell, 10 more guards would lose their lives. Their run came to a halt as they were running down the path of stairs leading into the main village. A single stone soldier stood there, a carnival of bodies surrounding it. In the stone soldier's hand was the familiar disgusting head of the village lord who licked her. The fist slowly closed as the head turned into mashed meat. Oi, girl, the guard beside her had unsheathed his tanto. Lord Zosui was supposed to meet the village head. I don't see his body here, go and find him. Maybe he's in the village. What about you? Get out of here before that thing comes to get us. I'm doing this for Lord Zosui. Go. The guard ran towards the stone soldier who took the barrage of blows the guard gave him. Karen Uzumaki ran. She ran past the soldier, the bodies discarded like crushed hands, her feet stained with the blood running down the stairs. She was in the village's heart now, where the rest of the people lived. It was worse here. Everything was on fire. More stone soldiers roamed around, fighting against the forces this village had. She avoided the ones aiming for her with her speed. Screams of horror and anguish filled the air along with the swing of steel. She held her head and cried freely, running through the streets of this village. In between all this, she still felt the chakra looming over her. It's watching me, she thought. She needed to hide from it. At the same time, she wanted to see where it came from. It was hypnotizing. So much power. Cruel power, but so much power, it called out to her. Her sense of chakra was overloading. The Uzumaki needed to calm down. She saw a house. It was nothing special. It looked broken, but there were no guards around it. Bracing herself, she went inside and desperately looked for places to hide. Up the stairs she went and was about to rush into the room when she realized the door was half open. There were noises coming from the inside. Grunts, pants, moans, the sound of flesh slapping against flesh. Her shaky hands covered her mouth as she realized what was happening. Things like these were common during an invasion or attack. Spoils of war they were called. The woman screamed, loudly, before her panting was the only noise remaining. Karen heard what felt like the sound of wind in the room, a chuckle followed it. Well, that's interesting. She felt a chill run down her spine before she heard the wind whisper again. She dared not to look inside despite the silence. But she couldn't leave either. Bringing out the blade hidden in her frames, she opened the door to find no people in there. However, she found something else on the floor. White, thick and creamy, pools of jizz laid here and there, and the smell of it was overwhelming. She felt hot again, inside. Since she gazed into the chakra with her mind's eye, something inside her was thrashing about. Her senses were not normal, they were disheveled. The raging fires outside did not help to calm her down. She needed time to recover from this, to get out of here. But how? Once more, she gazed out the window, carefully this time. The blood moon looked down on her with indifference. Fires raged, bodies fell, and Zosui. She found him. He could barely walk now, he was bloodied all over and finally fell on the ground. Stone soldiers surrounded him on all sides as he looked at them. Zosui, the man who ruined her life, the one who made her mother heal and heal and heal and heal until she could no longer go on, cried. He was on his knees, his face in the dirt. Please. She heard him wail in between the hell that was outside. Anger brew up in her. Please let me go. Her mother had said the same words to him, so many times. I beg you. She'd said those words when he forced her to heal all those people, on the brink of chakra exhaustion. Take a look around you, whatever the fuck your name is. Does it look like I'm in mood for sparing? You can do better than that. It was the same voice. The one she'd heard in the room. Karen wanted to run, yet at the same time her gaze was transfixed. The chakra she'd felt, it was him. It coalesced around him, radiating outwards. There was no doubt about it. She witnessed as all the stone soldiers stepped aside, a man walked in between the gap. He stood in front of Zosui. All she could draw out was his red hair. Come on now. I'm talking to you. The least you could do is look me in the eye. Or maybe I should get my slaves. I'll go with slaves. Look me in the eye before my slaves turn you into a skewered pig. Zosui looked up and she could still hear his whimpers. Please. I beg you. Let me live. Why the hell would I do that? I killed everybody in this village, well except the finer women and the young children. I need them for something. The man looked around. I have a woman, here with me, in the village. She's an Uzumaki. I could give her to you. Karen's heart sank deep into her chest as she heard the man laugh. Interesting. Where is she? I do not know. Perhaps she's in the village leader's compound. I can go in. Not gonna happen. I burned that place to the ground. No woman there. Well, no women there actually. Not anymore. Please, I can help you find her. Well, when you put it that way, all I can say is, she watched as he extended his hand towards Zosui. He grabbed it and stood up. No. In the blink of an eye she watched as Zosui's entire body started to shake. Smoke started to come off of his body as he screamed, hot steam rushed out of his body, his skin peeled off, his flesh melted and his bones were dissolved. Well, at least he made me a good offer. Right, Karen. He snapped his head towards her and she saw it. Two different eyes looking at her. his face clear as the vicious grin grew wider. Karen turned to run and saw he was already there. She swung her hand and he caught it. Then she realized she was not in the room anymore. They were in a large open courtyard. A giant white tree was behind him with hundreds of branches as cocoon-like shapes hung from it. He still held her hand and took the blade away from her. That was a rather nasty thing you tried to do to me. Uzumaki, don't kill other Uzumaki, Karen. She yanked her hand free and turned to run, but stopped on sight. All around her, so many more of his clones were present, each of them with women. All in fornicating like there was no tomorrow. Dozens of them burying their members into every hole the women had. She felt him grab her shoulder, forcing her around to look into those eyes. Then something felt odd. It was that hotness she'd been feeling. It rose to pitch fever as dizziness peaked, and she fell on her knees. She missed a beat, but it wasn't her heart. Her nipples stiffened and between her legs a warmth grew, making her panties moist and sticky. Damn, girl, I just gave you a little dose. Didn't know my chakra would be so potent for you. Oh right, I forgot. You're an ultra sensor. Who? She breathed out, are you? Me. She felt his finger under her chin as felt another rush inside her. She couldn't control herself anymore. I'm Naruto Uzumaki. He claimed her lips afterwards. Uzumaki. Her clothing was undone. Uzumaki. Everything around her seemed to fade into black before she could see again. Her head tilted back as pleasure rippled through her body. Uzumaki. Her teeth clenched down on her lower lip as she started rapidly bouncing in place, raising her hips to leave her cunt empty and void of before slamming herself back down and impaling her quivering on this wonderful. Then another one filled her mouth. She bobbed her head up and down while slamming her hips against the one already inside her. Uzumaki. Her mind, her body, her everything felt so good. Please don't stop. She remembered shouting that at one point. Every nerve in her body was on fire. Part of her felt as if she was in a dream. It was so fantastic, what she felt. Her mouth was clamped around the member as a blissful moan rumbled her in throat. The rough way her mouth was being fucked lit something up greater inside her. Karen gagged on the as before dropping her hips down and impaling herself on two dicks. Uzumaki. She screamed into the as both her holes were stuffed. A large immediately pumping back and forth in and out of her while another of the same size throbbed against her anal walls. Her ass tightened with each passing moment wanting to drain out every bit of cum she could milk out of them. They were stretching her beyond measure. She was ruined, she loved it. Uzumaki. The one below her squeezed her pinching her nipples red, the one behind her grabbed a handful of her soft ass before spanking it over and over again, the one who fucked her throat repeatedly slammed his hips against her face. Every thrust was like heaven to her. On and on it went, her muffled shouts of ecstasy came as she experienced the joy over and over until they paid her back. Uzumaki. The in her mouth erupted and flooded her throat with cum. All of this threw her over the edge of her orgasm, causing her to throw her head back and scream at the top of her lungs. Jizz drooled out as rope after rope of cum splattered along her cheeks and covered her face and, her felt the throb inside her filling her up with spunk before the man dragged it out and spray her all over her thighs and stomach. Her ass too, filled to the brim as she finally felt her rear end hole finally being given a change to breathe, white, sticky semen oozing out of her gape. She looked at them, the man and his clones, the latter too went away while he stood in front of her. He was so strongly built, his body chiseled to perfection, his mismatched eyes enthralled her, the devilish grin made her weak, and of course the large member that hung, coated with his seed. Uzumaki. Let me clean you, Karen muttered as she smiled and crawled on all fours. She was so tired, she grabbed a hold of his legs as she tried to reach upwards to take every bit of the spunk she loved to taste. That's when she saw him smile. He eagerly watched as the shuriken flew towards the boy. With grace he danced his way around them all. To inferior eyes it would seem everything happened in a blur. One moment he was there, the next he wasn't, but Orochimaru had lived long enough, garnered enough skill to see through someone's very soul. The boy jumped when the first wave came, swerving his limbs, neck, torso, to evade every single, sharp, steel instrument of mortal injury that were aimed at him. He hung midair, twisting and bending like a snake with a kunai in each hand to deflect the ones he could not dodge. And then it stopped as the rain of weapons died down. The boy stood with his eyes closed and slowly opened them. Orochimaru felt something inside him shiver as he saw those two lovely red eyes. His soul giggled at the sight of the Sharingan. Sasuke walked towards him and he had to admire the boy's resolve. 9 months had passed since the young Uchiha had arrived here, draped with blood, and each passing day made Orochimaru realize more what a grand prospect he'd made in choosing Sasuke as his next host. It was a real shame how destiny had robbed him of getting the Uchiha's body earlier, but time was something no one could win against. "You're interfering in my training," the boy told him. He'd grown taller these last few months, stronger too, becoming more well-versed in the curse's power. "Hardly, my dear boy," Orochimaru giggled a bit as Sasuke Uchiha shot him a look of annoyance. "I was simply admiring your training session. You can do that through the cameras. I prefer to look at such handiwork from a more intimate distance. Everything you say manages to disgust me." Orochimaru had to laugh at that. Sasuke Uchiha, for all his desires for vengeance, was still a boy at heart, and he oft remembered that when they talked. "What do you want? Come with me." Orochimaru headed for the door as the boy followed him. "You've been growing stronger since you arrived. Quickly too." "Not fast enough," the Uchiha told him as they were in the hallway of this particular base. "I've yet to beat you one-on-one. With time, experience and more training, you'll get there soon, Sasuke." Orochimaru reassured him. He was surprised the boy challenged him so quickly after arriving, but he relented. He wanted to gauge the young one's powers and he did not disappoint. However, Sasuke Uchiha, with skills far too good for someone his age, was still not ready to face someone like him one-on-one. Let alone Itachi Uchiha. That helped him rub it in the boy's face. More incentive for Sasuke to listen to him and do as instructed. Orochimaru knew that the largest struggle would be after he helped the Avenger achieve his vengeance, but he had a plan for that too. Sasuke grunted at those words and the pair walked to the main room where Kabuto was seen sitting by a desk, writing something. Sasuke walked ahead, standing by the former Konoha shinobi. "Kabuto." "Sasuke." The medic nin smiled, greeting the boy. "How'd the training session go?" "Great as usual. The shuriken. They need to be shot faster." "Well, sadly those things can't go any faster than the mechanical limits they have." Kabuto adjusted his glasses. "Perhaps you should slow down a bit." Sasuke Uchiha did not like that. Instead of saying something passive-aggressive as usual, the boy looked to him. "You better have a good reason to drag me out of training for." "I do. In fact, I dare say you'll be delighted after finding out why." "Kabuto, if you will." Dutifully the boy did as he was told as he went to the head table. Removing the cloth, Orochimaru saw how Sasuke's eyes focused on the object. Something specially crafted for the Uchiha, a tad bit larger than most of its contemporaries, the weapon had a black hilt and scabbard as the boy moved towards it. He took it into his hands and unsheathed the blade, and swung it around, testing the weight. "That Chikuto was made with you in mind, Sasuke," Orochimaru said as the boy slashed into the air. "The steel was forged from chakra-inducing metal. Your former teacher, Kakashi, was quite adept with infusing lightning with his weapons. I'm sure you can go further beyond that." And then Sasuke spun on his heel, forming an arc as the blade aimed for Orochimaru's neck. Kabuto, of course, blocked the blade with a kunai as the sharp edge of the steel was inches away from his face. "I'll need more time to practice with this." "Of course," Orochimaru smiled as the boy took the weapon and headed out of the room. More determined than ever. "He's quite excited, isn't he? We all have our goals in life and we react to them in our own way, Lord Orochimaru." Kabuto was observing his kunai, marking the small chip in it. He had no intention of stopping. Our resident Avenger put lethal force into it. I know you would have dodged it, but he makes me concerned. As you should be, the former Sanin advised. The boy is unstable whether he likes to admit it or not. I can't blame him. What he went through is surely to leave scars on anyone's mind. Besides, Kabuto, I thought you always had an interest in such people. I do, the boy admitted, but not at the cost of your life, my lord. Oh Kabuto. Sometimes he felt bad for the boy, but then he remembered how easily he could have turned into someone like Kabuto. You're a gem among rogues. Smiling, the boy shook his head. I try, my lord. Speaking of gems, Gurren hasn't returned yet. The crystal user. Another soul lost in the wicked ways of the world. Looking for a path that she could find some semblance of peace in. Well, her own version of peace. Apparently she found it under his guidance and in that of a young boy whom she'd baby all day and night. Orochimaru for the life of him couldn't figure out what went on inside her head. It had been over 2 weeks since the Gurren had left, and while she was far from the most important piece he did have use for her. She was supposed to arrive by this morning, correct? Yes. Strange. She's never late. If anything, she arrives earlier. Perhaps they're making a stop on the road. That boy Yukimaru does often fall ill. I'm sure there's nothing to worry about. Yes, my lord, and just like that Orochimaru went back to his own quarters. The room was just like every other room he'd had. A bed, a bathroom and a large table with dozens of papers arranged in neat form. He yawned, covering his mouth. Some days went more slow and boring than he'd like, but it was a day closer to him getting what he wanted. Taking a stack of papers, he began reading them. He would need his arms back one day after all. A gift. That's what it had been. That's what she'd been told since she joined Orochimaru. The village which mocked her and berated her, hated her abilities and marked her as an outcast for her abilities had been burned to the ground by the Sannin. How easily he had taken her in, raised her, trained her, groomed her to be his next vessel, telling her how she was gifted. She gladly gave up her free will for that man. Unfortunately, time was not on her side and Sasuke Uchiha had arrived. He'd be the next one, the one her master wanted. Gurren didn't complain. She knew her place. When she was sent on this mission, she'd expected things to go smoothly. As usual, she'd taken Yukimaru and Gozu with her. She didn't trust Kabuto, not one bit. Especially around Yukimaru. Gozu was there simply as backup in case something went wrong. Things had gone terribly wrong. The village outpost they'd arrived in was under attack. An entire army was here. Men of large, tall, strange stature. All of them wearing different sorts of armor and wielding swords, war hammers, giant blades, axes, crossbows, scythes, halberds and lances. They killed every living being in sight, save women and children who were being kept separately, and the moment she noted the numbers she decided to hightail it out of there. Powerful she may be, but going against that many foes, especially with Yukimaru around, was just an unnecessary risk. Unfortunately, things didn't go as planned as she realized the sounds of clanking were rushing towards them, causing her to unleash the power of her crystal release. Her gift. She'd felt a bit of rush when her power was so devastatingly used to slaughter who came after her until she realized the men in their armors were not men. Her crystal stabbed them in vital parts, yet not one drop of blood, a pound of flesh nor a grunt of pain came from them. Stone and metal rattled as the bodies rose from the ground, missing an arm, a leg, or both. Like ghosts from nightmares they walked and crawled menacingly, armed and dangerous. Thankfully, Gozu and Yukimaru had already gotten further ahead. She just needed to escape the two things that were still on her trail. One of them was large, fat and slow. His head was smaller compared to the rest of his body, but he carried a giant hammer and he wasn't slow when he swung it, attempting to take off her head in a few tries. The other one was faster, leaner and carried a cross spear with which he was very proficient. His head armor looked like that of a lion. It was annoying. The big one took a lot of hits to phase, it was then the other one would try to skewer her and vice versa. Suddenly the fat one jumped. High, his bottom descending fast, he was intent on flattening her. Gurren rushed through hand seals, springing a giant crystal from the ground as it emerged to pierce through the big one right through his metal ass. The other one stopped to observe her actions for a moment before he took the spear in one hand and lunged it at her. It came so fast, Gurren barely dodged it as the Lion Knight kicked her squarely in the chest, though she managed to absorb some damage, crossing her arms right before he hit. It was then she noticed how the big one wasn't moving. Did it work? She'd been conserving chakra so as to not drain herself out previously when she'd fought the squad that came after her before, not putting enough oomph into her techniques. The knight's fist aimed for her face, but she grabbed his arm and dragged him through the air using his own momentum, slamming him and maintaining distance. Bore. She did the hand seal, ram. Crystal release. Tearing crystal falling dragon. With those words, she grabbed onto the broken tree branch, turning it into a magnificent, pink dragon, made of crystal as she gauged his timing. The knight had picked up his spear and faded to the right, now. And her dragon lunged at the knight, biting on his head as Gurren formed a jade crystal blade protruding out of her arm. As the knight struggled to break free from the dragon, Gurren rushed at him. Her eyes transfixed on his neck and with a swish she swung. Jagged sharp crystal struck against black metal, dented into it. Like a saw she cleaved through, desperately ripping through his arm until the headpiece fell. Her dragon crushing the body into deformed scrap. She breathed for a moment, observing the armored fatass she'd impaled through the anus. Well, he's dead too. Dead wasn't what she'd call them though. They were like her crystal dragon, automatic jutsu constructs. Given how many I saw, how much chakra was put into this? How many users? She'd ask those questions later. First she needed to catch up with Yukimaru and Gozu. Creating her favorite spying crystal ball with a stone she picked up, she started to peer into it when she noticed something glimmering in the crystal. She ducked as the weapon missed her by a hair. Another armored knight. This one was much leaner and this one's face looked like a bluish mask, effeminate. She wasn't alone. Another armored knight, tall as the lion headdress one. A void of black was on his face as a long, dark blue cloth stuck out from his head, however his greatsword took more of her attention. Two more, she thought, already planning to turn the properties of the orbs into an attack. You fuckers move in groups or something. That's the point. The voice affirmed her guess, but they didn't answer her. Glancing to her right, she saw him sitting on the tree branch comfortably. His back leaned against the trunk as he looked at her sideways. He wore black overall and had something in his hands, a cup of instant ramen. He twirled the noodles and took a mouthful which he kept eating, and eating and eating. He wasn't stopping. Then it stopped as he threw the cup away. He had an innocent smile on his face, however his eyes unnerved her. Red irides with slits, and darkness surrounding it from all sides. His crimson hair was wild and spiky, his build was strong. He stood up and stretched, before walking off of the branch into the air and landing on the ground. Not a single bit of impact, not a noise, nor the hustling of dust at his feet. He rubbed his chin, looking at the dead knights. Need to reinforce them. Against normal Jonin they should have no problems, but you're not normal, are you? Who the hell are you? Her jade crystal blade was ready. The two new knights had not made a single move, instead they kept staring at her. She had to worry about those two as well in addition to this guy. Just a guy who's looking to right a lot of wrong decisions about to be made in the future, he shrugged before whistling. Take those two out of here. Remind me to put a voice function in all of you and fix the recovery time on you little shits. The bigger knight jumped up and with a single swing of his sword cut through her giant crystal spike, as he dragged the obese armored knight. The other one picked up the lion knight, and the pair left with the fallen ones. You know, this is the first time any of my soldiers fell. The two you took care of in particular were supposed to cause problems for a squad of Jonin. Seems I miscalculated a bit there. So really, thank you. He waved his hand and bowed a bit. Who the fuck are you? Gurren took a stance and his relaxed, Aloof composure didn't sit well with her at all. He's been here this whole time. No, I would have noticed him. What the hell are those things? Right, so those guys, he pointed at the direction they'd last gone, are kinda my slaves, but I like to call them the Inquisition. Never heard of them. That's the appeal. Nobody ever expects the Uzumaki Inquisition. Has a nice ring to it. Uzumaki. Gurren paid him a closer look and it made more sense. She'd heard about them before. Thought all of you were supposed to be dead. Hardly. He ran a hand through his hair and smiled. If it wasn't for the dangerous environment, she'd have seen the appeal more clearly. As Uzumaki are rare and few, but that makes us even more special. Besides, there are more than me. I got one back at my place. There's one with Uzumaki blood in the Konoha, and I'm pretty sure there are more out there who've got a little bit of Uzumaki in them. As much as I'd love to talk, Gurren's footwork was ready for the worst. I have things to do and places to be. Yes, I'm sure. Well, on your way then. He pointed to the other direction. Gurren felt stumped. He was letting her go. He looked at her, his head tilted. You seem surprised. I thought, never mind. She turned to leave and formed her all-seeing crystal ball again, peeking in to see how far Gozu and Yukimaru had gone. The image flashed to life and all she was Gozu. Dead. There was someone else there with him. Red-haired, draped in black, he looked back at her through the orb, flashing her a smile. Something inside Gurren snapped as she yelled and lunged for the Uzumaki. Her jade crystal blade swung wildly as the sharp edge met his neck and shattered like glass. She looked at her arm, at the broken vestige of the blade that remained, and heard him yawn. Wow, he said. Here I was letting you go and you decide to attack me. Move. You son of a bitch. Gurren rushed at him, her fist filled with vengeance as she punched him square on the jaw. Pain coursed through her hand as her bones cracked from the pressure she felt. It's broken. Now why would you do something like that? He stepped closer as she tried to kick him in the head. This time he grabbed it, her ankle rested in his palm. Not only do you try to attack me, but then you call my mother a bitch. That gives me ideas though. You killed them. She tried to break free, kicking him with the other in futile fashion, falling to the ground as his grip remained firm. Rage swirled inside her along with despair. You killed Gozu. And Yukimaru. Who? He raised an eyebrow at her before closing his eyes and then he spoke. Oh, those two were with you. In my defense, the man attacked me first. As for the boy, he's still alive. Though he's out cold. The boy fainted when I killed the man with him. Can't blame him. Gurren grew flabbergasted at his words. She didn't believe him. You're lying. How about a demonstration? She heard something. It sounded like wind and suddenly there was another one of him. A clone, only he held up someone. A child. It was Yukimaru. Her broken hand reached out towards him as she called out. Yukimaru. Yukimaru. It's me. He's unconscious. With those words she felt the yank on her foot as she was pinned down underneath him, his hand snaking its way to grab both of hers together, his legs spreading hers. So he can't hear you even if you scream. Do you understand? You godless mother F you, she choked as his fingers wrapped around her neck. With evil intention in his eyes he leaned in, his lips breathed hotly against her ears. If you want the boy to live, you do as I say. She heard the words as the grip tightened and dark started to take over. If you don't, little Yukimaru dies. Those were the last words she heard before she lost it. With a gasp she woke and breathed hardly. She was in a bed and the room was darkly lit. There was someone else there. A woman, young, pretty and curvy. She had black hair and green eyes and wore what Gurren would barely call clothes. A sports bra that came down to barely cover her nipples and a loin cloth through which her crotch was visible. She looked at Gurren and smiled. My master has been waiting for you to get up. Master. Yes, Master Uzumaki has been waiting quite some time. Her cheeks reddened as she cusped them. It's always so amazing to have someone new added into his collection. Collection. Gurren grit her teeth as every fiber in her body grew enraged. That fuck was a pervert. Fuck you and your master. Oh, you will. The girl licked her lips, a dizzy look in her eyes. Maybe I'll even join in if master permits it. Gurren was beyond words now. They were messed up in the head. The words she'd heard last came back to her mind. There was a child. Where is he? Oh, he's resting, the girl told her. He's being attended to. Apparently there's something he needs from the boy. Make sure not to disappoint my master if you want him to be safe. Gurren wanted to choke that bitch where she stood, but didn't. Yukimaru's life was at stake here, and given how that whore was dressed and what her words entailed, she'd have to service the Uzumaki. Part of her retched at the thought. To be used like this, it made her angry. Before she could say anything, the girl pointed to a set of clothes on the bed. You'll be wearing those once you step out. She turned and opened the door. Gurren inspected them and her disgust grew further, but she didn't have a choice in this. She had to get Yukimaru out of here, and there was also the fact that she wasn't sure just how strong the Uzumaki was. Her hand had. She looked at her hand, the one that was broken upon contact with his jaw. It was completely fine. What the hell? Gurren rolled her fist around, stretching her fingers. What did he do? Eyeing the clothes again, she'd ask those questions later as she remembered what lied ahead. Discarding all her clothing, Gurren took the cloth in hand and put it on, observing herself in the mirror. A tight light blue, V-string bikini that hugged every curve of her body nicely, leaving very little to imagination. Her were barely kept in, her nipples sticking out of the garment, as they jiggled with every step she made. She felt embarrassed and angry at the same time, to be brought down to this level. She opened the door to find a large extending hallway. Outside her door were two tall knights, their silver armor had been polished well. One of them nodded at her mechanically and started to walk, she followed him. So all of you are just puppets. Serving him like mindless sheep. Like the ones before, it said nothing as it stopped on the third door on the left, which were evenly and quite graciously spaced out. He opened the door for her, and for a moment looked at her. Well, his helm did. It was empty inside. Speak carefully to the Lord. Lest you crave death for the child, harlot. Very rarely had Gurren ever been afraid, but the voice she heard was so empty and hollow, like it had no purpose beyond this. It terrified her. Walking inside, she squinted. It was much brighter inside. Lights of pink, purple and magenta transitioned into each other. She noted the bed in the middle, spacious enough for at least 5 people. The fragrance of jasmine was in the air. There he was, sitting on the couch, one leg over the other, guzzling down a bottle of sake. Not a drop spilled out of his lips. He let out a refreshing sigh and burped loudly, keeping the empty bottle on the side table. Even in this setting, the crimson eyes were prominent. In fact, if anything, this room gave him an otherworldly look. His body already did that. Chiseled and buff, this man looked like the envy of every other man, as she could clearly outline every single well-worked muscle on his body. No doubt he'd worked tirelessly on them for years. The only clothing he had on were some shorts. The Uzumaki smiled, patting on the spot right beside him. Her fist shook, but she walked forward, sitting beside him. He took another bottle in hand and poured a drink for her. She refused. Gurren knew why he brought her, but she wasn't going to let some drink make her say stupid words when the deed would be done. This is really good sake, you know. He waved the saucer around. No, okay. Your loss. I know someone who would have punched you on principle for refusing such a fine thing. His hand reached for her, snaking around as he rubbed her hip, caressing and adoring it. Where's Yukimaru? He's resting, the redhead answered after finishing. He praised you a lot, Gurren. I can tell. He knew her name. He must have tortured the boy. If you do anything to him, I'll do nothing, he told her as she found herself looking him dead in the eyes. The dark around the red irides pulled her in as she grew quiet. You ran your little jewel blade against my throat and I didn't even defend myself. You're on lower chakra. Tell me, Gurren, just what the fuck do you think you can do to me? Gurren had no answer. That's right. Absolutely positively nothing. Also, How's the hand? Still a bit stiff, she answered as she took in the words. Her powers, her gift, he'd called them nothing. Oh, that's not the only thing stiff, if you know what I mean. He wiggled his eyebrows as if this whole thing was a joke. As if she was nothing more than a joke. Just, why are you doing this? For fun. It didn't sound like he was joking about that bit. Besides, look at you. Why wouldn't I want a piece of your ass? Speaking of which, his hand shifted from her hip to her right butt cheek as he gave it a good squeeze, and Gurren squirmed a bit under his touch. His fingers were digging into the fullness of her butt as he fondled it, inching closer and closer to where the string of the bikini shut off her anus. After we do this, Gurren just wanted it to be over. She knew she had no choice. You're going to let us go? That will be your choice. He shrugged as his other hand cupped her cheek, his thumb circling it. After you do what I ask, of course. And what the hell is that? 200 times. What? 200 times, he repeated. You will act like my personal sleeve. 200 times I will use you. 200 times I'm going to fuck you. 200 times I'm going to fill you up. 200 times you're going to make me release it. And after 200 times I am done fucking you so hard that your brain turns into mush, then you get to make the call. Gurren grew disgusted as she started to feel a bit hot under his words. The hand on her ass was playing with the string, pulling and tugging on it, rubbing against her rear entrance. 200 times, she thought. I'll just make him come fast. Not the first time I'd be using my body to get my way. She nodded her head and immediately she felt her being dragged by her ponytail from the couch to the floor. Her face resting in between his thighs, her chin on the couch as she felt a certain heat from being near his crotch. It was only now she noticed the bulge underneath. It was saddled into the side of the thigh hidden by the cloth. 200 times, Gurren, he let go of her ponytail, undoing it as her hair was let loose and went below her shoulders. Right now you're at 0. The quicker you work, the quicker you get the chance to make the choice. You make it sound like I don't want to leave. Her words made him laugh. He wasn't even being about it. Take my shorts off and you'll find out. Angrily she yanked his pants off and got slapped in the face. Not with his hand though. She stared at it. The obnoxiously large, long, meaty and hard, there was a smell coming from it and it invaded her nares. His dick's musk was all she could smell as the jasmine's fragrance seemingly disappeared. Gurren used both hands to grasp it as she looked hesitant. What the hell? Gurren's fingers wrapped around it and there was still so much to cover. Well, he said, making her look up, you're gonna have to lube it since I'm a bit big down there. A bit. Gurren was more afraid about her insides than she was about being hurt by the man. She reluctantly opened her mouth wide open, letting the head of his rest on the outer rim of her lips. She slid those lips slowly over the girthy prick, and suckled firmly, cheeks pulling in before her head pulled back, a lewd pop filling the air. It's so hot, she thought as her tongue came out and licked the underside of his shroom. She felt embarrassed, ashamed. Here she was like some common whore gleefully sucking away at his as the smile on the Uzumaki's face remained. Her lips squeezed tightly around the shaft of his as he started pushing her downwards, fucking her lips energetically. It went back and forth slowly with short burst thrusts into her wet gullet, creating loud slurping noises as she worked herself proficiently sucking him, taking in as much she could for the moment. The taste of his ensnared her buds, as the musk overwhelmed her sense of smell. She heard him groan. Did you do this to Orochimaru too? She stopped for a moment before he pushed her down again. I didn't tell you to stop, he said, pushing his member into her mouth more fluidly, making soft slurping noises come out from her lips as she worked him, her jaw aching as she took in more of his girth. Her tits broke free from the barely there bikini she wore and they swung each time she went up and down the shaft. He was not letting her off easy as he was slowly increasing the pressure and Gurren could do nothing about it. Oddly enough, despite it all, she could feel a familiar warmth growing in between her legs and that made her even more angry. Loud succulent pops of saliva came gushing out of her throat as he voraciously shoved his length down her gullet. Gurren kept her focus and squeezed her lips before he started her to take even more voraciously, violently. Rub your tits. Really get into the mood. We're gonna be here for some time. She found herself obeying his words as her hands grasped her, squeezing and rubbing them, her fingers circling around her areola, pinching her sensitive nipples as they grew stiff, all the while he controlled her head, making her go further, choking and gagging before allowing her to breathe, then making her take further. Her drool was coating the with a shiny sheen as they gathered at the base and the smell of his further intensified. She squeezed her tits together as she gagged on she had taken about almost half of it in, mesmerized by how fucking big that thing was. Finally he let her go as Gurren reeled back, falling on her ass as she sat on the ground, drool uncontrollably falling from her lips to her chin, her throat, her chest and over her tits. Her eyes were half-lidded as she saw him get up and his strong hand reached down, grabbing her throat much more gently this time. She'd become familiar with the touch as he threw her to the bed. Gurren's landing wasn't exactly gentle, but it wasn't bad neither. Take it off, he said as she followed his hands, stroking the monster between his legs. It was shining. Make it look interesting. Gurren didn't feel as angry as before. Maybe sucking the largest she'd ever seen had something to do with it as the crystal user, slowly, rhythmically undid the straps from her shoulders, laying down and raising her legs as she took it off. It was then she realized she'd felt more than just warmth between her legs. She'd been so immersed into swallowing his shaft Gurren didn't realize how wet she'd grown. No, she thought to herself. I'm not fucking turned on. Reluctantly her hands went down there to convince herself. She failed when her fingers grew sticky and wet, stained with the guilty joy her body felt. He walked forward as she brought her legs together, not wanting to give him the satisfaction. You know I can smell it, right? His voice sounded different than before. It was mysterious and alluring. His fingers slowly drummed on her ankles, tiptoeing their way to her thighs. His hands grasped the underside, giving them caressing squeezes as Gurren did her best to hold back her moans. He was touching her exactly the way she wanted it and her legs spread apart, revealing her wetness and she grew aroused from it, her body growing hot despite the terrible situation she was in. Yukimaru, she thought, I'm doing this for Yuki. She gasped a bit, covering her mouth as the Uzumaki's hand reached between her legs, caressing the moisture of her slit. Well, if it isn't the visibly wet cunt. She breathed out, put it in already. Say please. What? She grew annoyed as she twitched, feeling his fingers rubbing the labia. His thumbs spread apart her moistened pair of hairless lips, exposing her throbbing dark red wetness. The tip of his rubbed her entrance, poking her. She covered her mouth when she felt him rub her up and down, teasing her the way she loved to be teased, her other grasping the bed sheets tightly. Say my name, and tell me to stick it inside you. He slapped his against his sensitive cunt, making her mule. Look at me. She did. His eyes were hypnotic and there was power in them. He slapped her slit with his member again. Gurren realized what was about to go inside her. Gulping, she spoke. Please, put it in me. He grabbed her, kneading them, squeezing them, his thumbs and index fingers played with her erect nipples, pinching them red, flicking them with his fingers. Say my name. Please put it in me, Lord Uzumaki. She waited in eager anticipation as his length rubbed up and down against her slit now. My name is Naruto, he said, and Gurren was sure she'd heard the name before, but I like you calling me that more. He climbed on top of her, his rubbed against her slit once more and she found herself kissing him, closing her eyes she locked lips with him. Her tongue was pushed back into her mouth by his tongue, slowly entering and swirling inside her, exploring her mouth as she pushed hers forward, the two appendages swirling against one another, locking moving in gentle harmony. She was torn between grabbing him from the arousal she felt, or the sheets from shame. His head pushed against her, shooting pleasure up her spine, into her head, making her shake as he continued to push her head back into the bed, kissing her more and more passionately. She felt his hands grab one in her hair, making sure she couldn't pull her head back, which served to finally make her grab him, pulling his body towards hers. This forced his chest to glide between his flicking her, which made her moan into his mouth, sending tremors through her nails biting into his back from the sudden feeling. His hand moved downwards, along her back, making her tingle as he caressed. She moaned loudly into his mouth, feeling him spreading her ass cheeks as he pushed a finger into her asshole. He pushed in again and again, spreading her asshole wider and wider with each successive thrust of his digit, her legs growing weak as her voice began to raise. Gurren squirmed, despising the fact that someone was entering her asshole. Still, her legs shook, her heart beat faster, and her eyes rolled back as she moaned. Her body loved it, lamented in it, even if she didn't. Simultaneously, she felt him put his thick thumb inside her lips. By this point, Gurren was riled up from the anal play, which made her following orgasmic shudder so much more satisfying. Her body collapsed and shook, her arms sprawling, her legs wild as she tried to contain her orgasm, but failed spectacularly. She was biting her lips, her eyes roiling back into her head as she panted, and sucked air in through her nose, trying to calm herself as she kept grasping the bed sheets. She spilled out, covering his thumb, his hand, the sheets under them. Naruto Uzumaki stroked his shaft with his hand, soaked with her juices, lathering all of it as he pushed against her vulva with his. She was already reaching climax once more. She looked at him, trying to speak, but the orgasm was so powerful she could barely breath, and only after Naruto's massive penetrated her could she speak properly. Fuck. Gurren screamed, feeling only a few inches of the pass into her womb. She felt him go slow, taking his time, looking into her eyes, one hand on her leg to keep it open for him, the other on her breast, playing with her nipple slowly, rubbing it with his thumb as it hardened under his touch, puffy and pink. She watched as the shaft slowly disappeared into her tiny womb stretching, his pressing against her cervix as she felt the tiny hole open, his making way inside her uterus, her eyes going wide as she felt him enter the deepest part of her body. She let out another scream, her shooting cum onto his pelvis. She screamed once more, tears formed at the corners of her eyes as she felt him put all of the long, thick log moving in her as he pulled and pushed inside her. He moved up, grabbing her neck as he rhythmically thrust and fucked her, his lips on hers as she had to pull away to breath for a moment, only to go back again, kissing him, their tongues intertwining once more inside her mouth. Gurren couldn't believe the feeling of such a inside her, unable to grasp that her uterus was penetrated. She'd fucked many times before, but not like this. He was going to places she didn't know existed. Her body moved on her own, on raw, basic, primal instinct, thrusting her hips back and forth was well, her mind clouded, but her body preparing to take a gallon of cum in her fertile womb. 200 times, this large, monstrous would be going inside her 200 times. Gurren gasped and screamed in joy as he pulled back, his pulling her up into a sitting position, her body upright as her collided with the redhead, Naruto grasping one tit with his hand in order to pull it up and suck it. Gurren cradled his head, pulling it closer to her as he sucked and bit on her tit, covering her areola with a large, red, puffy hickey, much to her pleasure, making the cool air in the bedroom cause her tit to tingle. He did the same to the other tit, the pain lasting only seconds, but the feeling of being owned trumped every other sensation. She pulled his head from her tit to kiss him again, his pelvis rubbing back and forth, the thick rubbing against the back of her uterus. She found herself being flipped mid-fuck, feeling the rotate inside her breath being taken from her lungs as she nearly reached orgasm from that movement alone, and landed on all fours on the bed. Behind her now, he smacked Gurren's thick ass. Once, twice, thrice, smacking away as she cooed and mewled at the harsh treatment. He put his thumb into her asshole, her yelps making him laugh and caused him to push deeper into her womb shrinking in response, making his feel bigger with each millimeter of thumb that entered her sphincter. He grabbed her waist with his other hand, pulling her back and pushing her forward, his being sucked into her depths with little effort from his part, her pulling him in nearly all by itself. Still, he prodded further. He leaned forward, pulling his hand away from her asshole as he slid both arms across her sides to grab her tits, tugging at her as though she were a cow for milking. Gurren moaned louder and louder, the bed vibrating from her own orgasm, as well as her voice from the sheer overload of pleasure she was receiving. Naruto moved up further, his mouth on her neck as he went down and sucked on the nape of her neck. Gurren nearly cringed in response to the feeling, and afterwards, felt a large hickey on the base of her neck for all to see. He was marking her, she could tell. He wanted to make sure not only did she knew that she was owned by him, but he wanted everyone to know, and slowly, systematically began biting and sucking on her back, leaving hickeys across her body, causing Gurren to experience another orgasm while he did this. His hands on her kept her from falling limply onto the bed, forcing her to keep going as his was continually sucked by her uterus. She wanted to rest, but she didn't want this feeling to end, ever, and pushed on, forcing herself to go back harder and pull forward faster, trying to make her new master come inside her. No, she thought. Yukimaru, she remembered, I'm doing this for him. I need to get back to Lord Orochimaru, she forced herself to think as his slick with her cum began to pour out of her. His balls slapped against her over and over again, the cum inside sloshing around near audibly with how forceful Gurren was being with her thrusts backwards. I need him to cum. For this to be over. But she was enjoying this too. Far too much. Gurren went harder and harder, but moments before she had finally reached the moment that she would finally finish him, her legs and arms slipped, her face fell into the bed as she went limp from exhaustion. She tried to stay awake, moving slowly, trying to push herself back up, but to no avail. The Uzumaki pushed himself down, digging his as deep as he could into her uterus, and thrust even faster than before. Her body was rigid yet limp at the same time, his plowing into her at near superhuman speeds, pushing and stretching her womb in ways that she had never thought possible. She gasped into the bed, moaning shamelessly as she felt him dig the deepest inside her. Dozens of ounces of cum were let loose in her uterus. Gurren's moan echoed, her body coming one last time from the climactic response of Naruto Uzumaki, but after that, her mind went blank, her eyes half closing as she almost felt unconscious. The sensation of every shot of cum inside her made her tingle, the goo leaking into her vagina, surrounding his shaft as she felt bloated from the goo filling her up, and moments later, felt her vulva give way to a tidal wave of cum exiting her body as he pulled out of her at last. Gurren tried to move, raising herself from the bed, pushing up with her hands. She fell on her side, the virile seed inside her leaked out staining her legs. She breathed raggedly from being fucked like that, and tried to reach out for something to help her get her bearings straight. Again, she tried and failed miserably. Then she felt someone picking her up. It was him. His hand was on the back of her head, gripping her hair as he dragged her from the bed to the couch. He pressed a thumb on her chin, making her open her mouth as he made her drink. It wasn't water. Sake. Very good sake that made her throat burn and she coughed a bit. The Uzumaki slapped her face, not too hard as it made her become more aware. I hope you aren't done, Gurren. That was just the starting point. Though it was pretty good. Pretty good. What are you? 200 times. Remember. Oh God, she thought as she looked at him. His was hard again, and for the life of her Gurren couldn't believe it. How? She yelled in her mind. She felt drained out from what she'd gone through prior. He'd been fucking her for 30 to 40 minutes. 200 times. The thought terrified her. What scared her more was the fact that he didn't even look fazed. Her mind went back to the girl earlier. Her words. It's always so amazing to have someone added into his collection. No. He looked at her with a raised brow. No, I don't think you realize you're in the position to say no. Please. I will please you. Don't worry about that. He waved off her words. He rubbed his chin, clapping his hands as if he'd found some grand solution to her problems. Gurren, I think I have an idea that will help us both. I won't change our contract of 200. However, I can help you get the same results in a shorter amount of time. What? Are The words died in her mouth as smoke appeared on his sides. 2 more of them standing with him. 3 throbbing. She felt wet again. No. Now this is what I call efficiently fucking your way out of a problem, right boys? That's right. Yeah. The clone on his left stepped forward, picking her up in a bridal carry. I like to call it a gangbang, but let's go with that. 199 loads left, he said as the other clone smacked her ass. She was being carried to the bed and there wasn't a damn thing she could do about it, the other clone followed. Her eyes remained on the original who was drinking from another bottle again. He flashed her the victory sign and mouthed something. She read his lips clearly. 200 times. He burped once more before putting down the bottle as she was put on the bed. It was empty. The last bottle. He'd been moderating for years now, he shouldn't have let this happen. It's just an off day. True, he'd been drinking a whole lot more since the last few months, but today was just an off day. That's all it is. Everyone had those. With that thought, he finished up sealing everything as he set out once more. Gliding his way across the forest, from branch to branch, he kept his senses aware. Granted, he was in a low threat zone, but years of staying on alert made him remain cautious like that. Unless women were involved. His greatest weakness. Speaking of women, he thought as neared his destination. The Nadeshiko village was just a few miles away, up on the cliffs. Tsunade had sent him on a mission to strike up an alliance treaty with the village given how the Leaf was a bit short on manpower. Plus, he needed to let an old acquaintance know that the deal they struck would be left unfulfilled. Miles out before the path he felt something off. There should be some sentinel kunoichi out here, he thought as the whole thing felt off. Throwing caution to the wind, he rushed towards the gates of the village and stood in shock. It was open and he couldn't see a single person. Usually it'd be filled to the brim with the most exotic women he'd ever seen in his life, as he'd jump and run from the sharp ends of their blades. Now it was just empty. Stealthily he began to scout through buildings, looking for people. None. However, he did not how the buildings were damaged. Inside them there were broken doors, furniture. Signs of conflict. The bridges were intact and he made his way across them, half expecting an ambush. He arrived at the next cliff and finally found some people. What was left of them anyway? Skeletons with rotting flesh and maggots feeding on them. Despite being shocked, the shinobi in him carried him further as he discovered more corpses now. Some strewn here and there. Limbs, torsos, heads. All of them. Yet the numbers didn't match up. He was sure there were more of them. For a village thriving on matrilineality, there should have been more people around. The boys who would be born here usually got drafted off to different orphanages in nations, most of them winded up in Iron Country. He needed to investigate this further. A village being wiped out like this. Who the hell would do this? A puff of smoke appeared beside him. A toad, reddish in color, tall as him, greeted him. Hey, Lord Jiraiya, you've been summoned, and what the hell? Gamakichi leapt back in surprise. He pointed at the dead remains. What did they do to you? I didn't do anything here, Gamakichi. Jiraiya stood up from inspecting the corpse. Where the hell is this place? Nadeshiko village, he answered. I came here to talk about an alliance with them. Then I found the whole place like this. The whole place. Who the fuck wiped out an entire village? I've been asking the same thing. He rubbed his eyes. Struggles everywhere. At this rate it will never end. Anyway, you were saying something. Right. The toad composed himself. The great toad summoned you. Huh, he said as he grasped onto Gamakichi's haori as they disappeared from the gruesome sight into a more tranquil one. Mount Myoboku. Probably the safest place on the planet. Unfortunately, he didn't have time to admire the scenery as he always did. Whatever the reason was for his summoning, he needed to get back and inform Tsunade of this. Things in the Leaf had changed since the incident. Danzo had gained a fair bit of favoritism, and his unit worked closer with the Hokage than they'd done before, well, not since the days of the Second War. Walking past the giant toad statues and up the stairs, he found the two great sage toads waiting for him. Lord Fukasaku. Lady Shima. He bowed his head as they seemed to be in a serious mood today. I don't mean to sound rude, but I'm in a bit of a rush. Be that as it may, Jiraiya boy, the two great sages walked to the temple, he followed them. There are things you need to be made aware about. The great toad sage requested your presence. That's rare, he thought to himself. The last time he'd talked with the old geezer was when Minato died. Before that, it was when news of Nagato's death came. Looks like I'm cursed. Or am I their curse? He thought to himself about his latest failure. Another one he failed to save. He stood in front of the great toad sage. Gamamaru was his name, though everyone here called him the great old geezer, affectionately. The oldest being here, and Jiraiya wasn't sure exactly how old that meant. The great toad sage was asleep. As usual, a shout from Lady Shima woke the ancient toad up as he looked confused. Huh, he said as he looked around, and he looked at Jiraiya with a smile. Ah, Jiraiya, look how you've grown up. He laughed a bit at the way he was greeted. Every single time the toad said the same thing. It has been some time. 17 years, give or take. Yes, I think. He nodded his large head. I heard the tragic news, boy. You have my condolences. Yeah, Jiraiya sighed. The great toad sage shifted forward a bit. Guess you could say I'm a curse to all my students. Nonsense, Jiraiya. Gamamaru told him. We go when it is our time to go. Whether you and I like it or not, all of us will one day pass on exactly how it's written. You make it sound like as if it's fated, Jiraiya pointed out. Surely not everything is set in stone. Fate is strange, my boy, the toad explained. Sometimes things happen as they are supposed to happen. Doomed to repeat in cycles. One man rises to seek power, another man rises to stop him from gaining too much power. Peace crumbles, war rages, then peace arrives until it corrodes. What are you saying? Jiraiya felt apprehended at the words. That we can never find peace. That it's necessary. I'm saying it's a part of the cycle. Both you and I, we seek to break it. The great toad sage leaned back. You called me for something. Yes, Gamamaru spoke. I had a dream. A dream of a mischievous boy. Blue eyes filled with joy. Until they grew dim and dark. Tears fell from them. Until they turned bloody. After that, all I could see was red. Jiraiya sighed inwards, closing his eyes. His godson. The boy named after the one in his books. One more regret. It was about Naruto. I've never seen the boy, but from what Gamabunta told me, he was blue-eyed. He was the son of your former student, yes? Jiraiya nodded. Strange. I read his name in our scroll. Uzumaki. Bizarre he didn't take his father's name. Well, usually children end up taking clan names as surnames if they're born from them. Or marry into them. Jiraiya said as a bit of guilt rose in him too. That, and we never really let him know who his father was. Perhaps, the great toad sage mused, the boy would have turned out different if he was told who his father was. Maybe. Jiraiya said. So that's all you called me for? Yes. Gamamaru said. Things have changed and I feel something sinister is afoot. Though I cannot tell what it is. I'll say. Jiraiya agreed. I found a village, wiped out root and stem. Just corpses. Every other person gone. Keep your guard up, Jiraiya, he said, closing his eyes sleepily. We never know what will happen. Yeah, Jiraiya said mostly to himself as he walked out of the shrine of the great toad sage. Lord Fukasaku and Lady Shima were outside, though he was sure they knew everything. You seem depressed, Jiraiya boy, Lady Shima told him, settling on his shoulder. Her forelimb on his head. You want to take a snack before you leave? He paled at the thought of eating her food. I'm good, thanks. Still, Lord Fukasaku crossed his arms, you should not feel so morose. I do not know the pain you're going through, but you must pull yourself together. The path you walk cannot be traversed this way. I know. Jiraiya sighed, wishing he was a child again. Back then, things were simpler. He just fooled around and didn't feel the burden of looking for peace in this world. Maybe it's pointless, he thought. Maybe I'm just a fool. With those words he remembered a blond boy, foolish just as he was as a child, but he had more will and guts than he could ever muster. A boy who never gave up. Even with his last breath. I'd be insulting his memory if I gave up now. Say, masters. Yes. Is there any way I can tweak my Sage mode? Sage mode was one of his best techniques. So versatile. There was his mastered Sage mode, red pigment around his eyes and the toad irides would appear. Advanced Sage mode, where the red pigments would extend outwards to his cheeks and two circles would appear on his forehead, the one Hashirama Senju mastered to a praiseworthy degree. Finally, there was the true Sage mode where a being became one with nature and used the very essence of it. This would open the inner eye as the circles formed on red circle with concentric lines. Only Old Man Six Paths did this right, until he finally mastered it of course. In his case it was a bit twisted, turning into a ripple. Six Paths Senjutsu was a completely different ballpark compared to the rest. Regardless, he appreciated the fine arts of mastering natural energy and it was truly a gift. One he could not repay enough. It was in Sage mode that he finally found who he was looking for. A handsome young man in a yukata, and a young pretty blonde behind him, natural energy gathered into the seal in her back. What an abomination of a seal. For years he'd been reverse engineering seals now, the Uzumaki inside him shone brightly in that category. Shaking his head he focused on the topic at hand. He waved to them. Good evening, he greeted them, deactivating his Sage mode. Pardon my intrusion, but do you happen to know anyone of the Tsushigomo clan? No, the handsome young man shook his head, offering a smile. Can't say we have. What brings you to this neck of the woods? Oh, I enjoy being the woods a lot. It's very refreshing. Something about nature that just pulls me towards it. He took a step forward as his eyes darted towards the girl. Hotaru was really pretty from what he remembered, and his heightened sense of lust made him look at her in a different way. I hadn't noticed how pretty she was. She is, but she's spoken for. Utakata quickly shut him down and Naruto raised his hands. Forgive me if I overstepped, but it's very hard. He paused, smirking ever so slightly, to not glance at her twice. Yes, I'm sure. Well, if that's all you want, Utakata pointed to the right, follow that path and you'll find a road to the main route. In case you get lost. Thank you. He bowed his head a bit, it's such a shame. What is? That I have to kill you. The air became tense around them. I ran into a village known for having the Tsushigomo clan. Imagine my surprise when I find the heiress not there. To be honest with you, Utakata, I didn't plan to meet you. In fact, I didn't plan to meet any of our siblings for now, but if this be my fate, know this, it will be much quicker than you think. Who the heck are you? Utakata had his bubble relic in hand. Oh, how he hated the last time he was tricked by it. Naruto was going to shove that up his ass. Well, Mr. 6, the Jinchuriki's eyes widened, I'm Mr. 9. Well, actually, I'm Mr. 10, but you wouldn't get it. Saiken does. You should ask him. Immediately he was swarmed by black bubbles. Throughout the skirmish he could see them clearly. Utakata was making his getaway bubble. Activating Kamui, he let the bubbles collide with each other as black liquids collided. Had he been a normal being it would have ate away at his flesh and bones, but even if he was hit by it, he doubted anything would happen. Well, gotta give credit where it's due, he tried to kill me right off the bat. Naruto stretched a bit noting how far the bubble was drifting. What should I do? Ooh, I know. He pushed his feet against the ground. Wind release. Wingless flight. Wind gathered as his feet, legs, back and arms as he started to jog. He skipped, and hopped to walk on the air before he glided through the air. Woohoo! His shout echoed in the air as the floating bubble neared, he could make out the look of shock on their faces. More bubbles flew towards him and gracefully he glided around all of them as explosions set off in the air. Picking up more speed he flew himself right into the path of the bubble. Using Kamui once more, he inserted himself into the bubble. He sat with them now, his arm around Hotaru, who looked to scream, but Naruto placed a hand over her mouth. Shish. He hushed her as the girl looked beyond terrified now, tears flowing out of her eyes. Naruto looked at Utakata with a smile. Calm down, Hotaru. We're all friends here. Besides, I'm here to help you with that seal of yours. His foot blocked the punch Utakata threw. Utakata, we're talking here. Have some manners. Who the fuck are you? The former mist shinobi tried to reach for him, yanking his legs, but this is exactly what Naruto wanted. They disappeared from inside the bubble and arrived at what he liked to call his court. Deep in the center of the courtyard of the former priestess mansion, a great white tree grew, his little experiment as the cocoons hanging from the branches increased. He jumped back, Hotaru still very much wrapped up by him. Welcome to Uzumaki Castle, Naruto gestured to his surroundings as Utakata looked around. I do hope you have a nice time. Red chakra violently bubbled out of his body as a red layer began to cover Utakata. Before the transformation could further go on, two of his clones jumped on his side's black rods in their hands as they whacked him in the face, phasing him out of his version 2 form. He fell on the ground as a smaller wood dragon emerged from a clone, wrapping itself around Utakata's legs. Naruto brought Hotaru in front of him, his hand shifted from her mouth to her throat as the girl freely cried. The clones with their black rods in hand stabbed it into his hands, into the ground. They conjured more rods as they began to violently, viciously hit Utakata everywhere. His head, his neck, his back, his arms. Stop, she wailed as she heard his cries of pain. Please, I'll do anything, anything, he whispered into her ear, licking her lobe. She cringed. His hand roamed inside the seams of her dress, finding her crotch as he rubbed her slit. The clones stopped as Utakata looked up, his face a bloody mollified mess. Naruto rubbed her in the spot he was so well acquainted with as she shook and cried. Her body naturally reacted to his touch. He enjoyed this bit so much. His fingers rubbed intimately on her, going below as inserted a finger into her cunt. They stopped. Didn't they, Hotaru? Yes, she said, squirming. I'll spare him. He turned her around, making her face him. Hotaru looked so hopeless. All you have to do is do what I say. No, Utakata yelled out before he yelped in pain as the clone whacked him over the head. Twice. Double tap always worked better. You'll let him go. I'll free him, Naruto said, cupping her cheeks. I'll even get rid of that seal off of your back. Shish. Don't worry. Nothing will happen. Trust me, I know seals better than anyone. Now, will you do what I say? Yes. He snapped his fingers and from the side out came out a woman. She wore a lingerie outfit of a lost white clothing barely covering up her lady parts at all. On her long legs were her dark blue stockings, her mound scantily covered up by a thin violet thong very easy to remove. Her chest uncovered for the most part as two crystal-like ovals covered her nipples, with her eyes lightless and looking into his face with a pleasant eager-to-please smile that made him grin. You called for me, master. Yes, Gurren, his latest addition. She'd agreed to 200 loads to free herself and Yukimaru. The crystal user had been completely broken by the time they reached round 75. Endlessly, mercilessly, brutally he and his clones had fucked her in every hole she had. She came and couldn't rid herself of the ungodly pleasure he gave her, and after a day and a half of fucking she became his. Take her. Give her a bath and make her ready. Of